Hello again, and welcome to a friendly fireside chat with no one of consequence. I'm joined again by John, who's kindly donated his time for this. This is for PDC, anyone in PDC, and if anyone else happens to be listening to this, welcome. Uh, Subject
Should we
material.
tell them that PDC is a Facebook group to anyone who's not in PDC?
Yeah, let's do that. So, yeah, PDC stands for Politics, Debate, and Crake, which is just a Facebook group where we have. It's a pretty well balanced Facebook group where it's closed, but you can get in. It's not invite only. Um, so
And it is
yeah,
based in the UK
yeah, it's
mostly.
based in the UK, so the primary focus tends to be UK politics.
Right.
Um,
Oh, and
and
Donald Trump, which crosses all boundaries.
yes, Trump is just universal. The God Emperor
Yes.
of mankind is everywhere.
No one cannot talk about him. So every good talk, just in case you want to talk about Trump, he gets talked about plenty in there. Come find the group. Anyway,
Oh, it's
that's my
awful
advertisement.
now that we've mentioned him in literally the first minute of this podcast. Like, I do hope that like every time we say his name, he has an earth-shattering orgasm. The-
I don't, but you can go ahead and think of it.
that's what it feels like, the need to be kind of spoken about. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked again. Today we're going
Yeah.
to be talking about like in very general terms. With like there's going to be a lot of sidetrack there's going to be a lot of tangents, but we're going to be talking about gender politics. I think part of it is going to be looking at transgenderism, intersex issues, um,
All of it.
feminism, all of it. It's all on the table. um, the First of all, let's address the elephant in the room. I'm presuming, John, you are a cis male.
I don't like that term. I've just I didn't choose that term. So you get to choose your own terms these days. I invented one, or at least I've come up with one that I use now. I've only started using it
Absolutely.
as a replacement for cis male. I would call it classical male.
Sorry, sorry, like, sorry that. Oh, that triggered me in a real deep way. Like you have hit some buzzwords there that like are deeply ingrained in my digital psyche. Oh,
Good,
had a
good,
had
good.
such a like Praga U vibe to it. Like I'm a classical liberal.
Well, I could have went for classic. I was more going for. Do you remember the Coke change in the '80s?
Oh fuck yeah, yeah I do.
So, and then when they came back, they called it Coca-Cola Classic when they brought
Yes,
it
but
back.
it
I was
wasn't
kind of more
classic.
going for.
But it wasn't classic. Like you fucking
No, no,
changed
when
the
they brought
recipe.
it, no, that when they changed the recipe and they fucked it over, and
Mm,
then when people bitched, they had them both side by side for a time, and the new one, which was the change recipe, which they called Coke,
yep.
or Coke 2 after a while, and then they brought back the original one in cans that were labeled Coca-Cola Classic. When they phased out new Coke, they just then changed it to regular Coke again, or Coca-Cola.
Yeah, it was a
But for
great.
a while, they had cans labeled Coca-Cola Classic, which told people this is the shit you used to like. Buy this one
Yeah,
instead.
this is the one you
And that's
want.
kind of what I'm going for in that. And that I'm an original. I wanted to go with original, but people said that wouldn't sound right.
Fair
There was a little
enough.
debate about it. I had yes.
Yeah,
So
no,
classic
cool.
male.
Okay, yeah, so you're male, I'm male. The reason I bring this up is like, so two men are going to have a conversation about what is probably going to be a fair chunk of like issues unique to being a woman. So, like, with that out of the way, like, take, like,
What is a woman? We
oh,
can start there then. What does a woman even mean anymore? We can be women if we want to. That's the rules now. No,
can we?
we're not, and so I
Sorry,
guess you
hang
can't
on,
just
sorry,
lie and say you're a woman.
I need
But
to
the point is
clarify.
that if a
Sorry.
man can be a woman, then
T-
what's a woman?
Time out, sir. Time out.
Yes,
Like, can they? Can we? Can I do that?
you could feasibly. Yes.
Okay.
Would you
Bec-
be a good-looking woman? I don't
But
want to.
no,
I'm not going
no.
to
What I
venture
mean,
that.
no. What? No. What I mean here is like, I don't recognize what you've just described. But clearly you do. So, like, can you elaborate? Because, like, I'm not. Uh,
That's the whole point of the transgender thing: is that a man who feels like a woman can then identify as a woman. No.
I mean, I feel as if we're kind of glossing over people who have like gender identity issues and is it dysmorphia, dysphoria,
It's not. That's not a
gender
disorder
dysphoria.
anymore, though. It's not a disorder
Dysphoria
anymore.
is. I'm not talking about dysmorphia. I'm talking about dysphoria.
We're not treating it as a disorder. We're treating it as you are what you say you are.
Okay,
That's
are we?
if they have a disorder, then
Sorry, what makes you say that? What, well, first of all,
well, that's
go on.
what makes me say that trans women are real women. You've not heard that?
I've heard that. I don't recognize it as
So
the
then, what's a
position.
real woman?
Sorry, let me clarify here.
Yo, I'm
Here's
sorry.
what this feels like right now. It feels like the conversation we are having is what like those YouTube content generators focus in on, where it's like these really kind of like terrible examples of like these terrible representations of feminists and uh, transgender advocacy groups or
Well,
people on
I
people on
agree with
fucking
you.
Tumblr, okay, which for me is not the discussion about is not a discussion about transgenderism. For me, that is a bunch of fucking idiots online. There I don't know.
But
So you're asking like
it's
what
in
is a woman?
print.
It's what?
Well, I mean, because that's a good conversation that's been had up. What is a woman? I mean, that's the. I don't want to get into conversations had by other people, or anything like that you were talking about, but uh, there's a conversation that gets had about women's shelters, battered women's shelters,
Okay.
and should a trans woman be allowed into a battered women's shelter? So you can look at that both, each way. On one hand, if you could look at it as you're allowing a male into a space with abused females,
Sure.
or you could look at it as you're allowing another battered female into a space for battered females.
Sure.
Which one is it?
Well, I would argue if there is a shortfall for providing a safe space for someone trying to escape domestic violence, my question is why is there such a shortfall?
I'm sorry, say that again?
So, under ideal circumstances, this is the world that I would strive for. Under ideal circumstances, domestic violence doesn't exist. But ignoring that for a moment,
Well,
like,
all right.
if someone needs shelter, irrespective
Right.
of their sex, gender, and gender, if someone needs shelter or a space that they feel safe in, why is that so scarce that we're having to decide whether or not a trans woman can enter a battery house? Why is there not a why is there not a capacity to have a space for a person who needs shelter? Does that make sense?
I agree with yeah, no, absolutely. But
And
if there, I mean, I guess would that solve the question? Would that answer it? If there was just more space and we didn't have to
if
have
there
this
was a place,
discussion?
if there was a place that someone, if there is a place that someone can go that needs shelter, irrespective of whether or not they're cis or trans,
Right.
for me that then makes that whole discussion moot. It may not for them, but like for me, that's my feeling on it.
There was speaking. We spoke a lot earlier. People don't get to hear all the good stuff.
Mm,
There was a viral video that went around where these two girls got uh, declined to enter a party. It was just some party for YouTubers. They call them. What do they call them? I don't remember. It's somewhere where they just have a lot of clout in social media. Big social media gathering. It was a party for that one kid. I forget his name too. And they were told they couldn't stay because they weren't real women. These were two trans women,
right,
girls, probably young 20s.
right.
And the guy at the door says they couldn't come in. Now, they were invited. It was a mix-up. But he says, man, the guests here who were expecting girls are expecting real girls, not, you guys. So that's like, they say they're girls. If a trans woman says, and then that's a woman. So you can't, like, that's the vibe I'm getting. That's what people are telling me. Not just people on
Well,
Tumblr. I don't go on Tumblr.
first of all, I would argue that's a really, really shitty and kind of creepy party.
Well, sure. I mean, you got no
First of all,
complaints
because
there.
if the
But
guys are saying like, "Oh, sorry, we were expecting girls that we could potentially fuck," presumably that is the narrative
no,
going
that's
on in their head, right?
exactly what they're saying, and they don't want to do it with a guy.
And
I get what
in my
at least
head,
what
I'm
they
just like,
perceive.
like
No, I agree with you.
that. There's a bigger conversation to be had there.
That's
I
probably
would
not the
argue,
party they wanted to go to anyway.
right, but I would also argue that what was said there is definitely transphobic. If you're saying to someone who is trying to pass as a woman, a trans woman, that you're not a real woman, yeah, fuck off.
So then therein, if that's a
No,
real
no.
woman,
What do you mean they're in? Like, no, I'm
well,
not
I'm just
saying.
saying, back to my original point. So if those two are real women, there's no distinction between
No,
them and a
you're
cis woman.
you're misunderstanding me here. What I'm saying is that to say to someone who is to say to a transgender woman that you are not a real woman, that is transphobic. That's it. That's all I'm saying
Oh, I
there.
get it. You're saying
Right.
it's insulting to them. I
Oh,
understand.
you are literally
Using their
discriminating against
most
someone because of their gender, because of the
right.
nature of their
Well,
transgender.
however, yeah.
Yeah, like so.
All I'm saying
This is
is
me arguing it from like a a protected
sure,
class standpoint.
but
But this
that's
is a
the point
private
of the
party,
that's the point of
so
the
nah.
female states, though.
Sorry.
No, I understand, but that goes the discrimination. That's perfect. So
Yeah.
if there's a discrimination law,
Mm.
let's say there's not transgender discrimination laws, just for a second. Let's say there's
Yes.
a law that's for women.
Yeah.
Does it apply then to a trans woman?
If the law is not clear and doesn't provide enough clarification on its use of terms, then I would argue that the law needs to be updated. Like, and generally that either happens through case law or that happens through legislation review. So a good example for this would be, and this is ongoing in the United States because I think it depends on which state you're in. But there was that baker who refused service to the wedding cake maker who refused service to a gay couple
That
who were
actually
getting married.
was, I believe that was settled, but he's back in the news.
Oh,
That's why
interesting.
you think it's still ongoing because that man can't seem to get himself out of trouble. But anyway,
Mm.
yeah, that original case was settled.
And what was the ruling there?
He was considered an artist. Like I say, he has some. He doesn't just like write on a cake with a little
Yeah, no, he's
like dropper. He like
yeah.
makes these flourishing things. And I think they said that his speech was he didn't have to make one of his artistic things like that or something. It was a very tiny loophole
Yeah, I was gonna
that he
say
got out on.
this just sounds like loophole chicanery. Like,
Yeah, it was a very
like
tiny loophole that he squeezed through and then found himself in similar trouble then later on.
yeah,
And he's still in ongoing legal fights. So he loopholed himself out of that one nicely.
yeah, okay.
Um,
So
I guess what's the distinct? Well, then what's the distinction? We'll just make it
distinction of
simple
what?
between a trans woman and a cis woman, if you want to use
Yeah,
classify
okay.
that.
I would say
Is there a distinction?
the prefix trans and cis. That's the
Sure,
distinction.
that's it.
Yeah. Are you expecting something
So then,
else?
what makes a woman? So then you're saying that all that makes a woman a woman. I mean, all right, I don't want to put that word in your mouth, but then
No, no,
is
go
that
on.
to assume
Like,
that what makes a woman is that she doesn't have trans next to it?
is that all that makes
Like
a
what's
woman?
what's inherently female? What is
I
that?
mean,
What does
if
a
you're
woman
like, okay,
mean?
now I can get now I can do this with you, okay? Um, so like, the point of reference for a clock is another clock, if that makes sense. So like, time is all kind of context related to other prefixes of time. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah.
And I would argue it's the same with gender and sex and indeed sex. So we have these two zones, okay? This dimorphic zone. So we have feminine dimorphic traits, sexually dimorphic traits, and we have masculine dimorphic traits, okay?
Mm.
So like, imagine it like a bell curve. You've got two bell curves, and then you've got this valley in the middle, but there is crossover, okay? And then you've got the outer edges of the bell curve, and I would argue that that is in the peak on the left, the feminine side, you've got a lot of traits that are associated with what makes a woman. On the right, you've got a lot of traits that are associated with a man. But the thing is, there is a lot of crossover. So I'm not. For me, this is my feeling. Sex is not a binary. Like, genetics tells us that intersex issues are a major thing. Like, so you can't use like taxonomy to decide who is a man and who is a woman. And to some extent, you can't even use genetics to decide who's a man and who's a woman because you've got extra chromosomal conditions. Yeah, there's a whole raft of other chromosomal conditions related to that. So like this kind of like
Man,
sex
you
is
were
a spec
killing my childhood.
sex is a spectrum and gender is a spectrum. I'm afraid.
You were killing my child. Don't you remember?
Why am I
Don't you?
killing your
Some little
childhood?
boy that said, this, remember, you don't remember over here it got played. Some little cute little boy would say, boys have a penis and girls have a vagina. Isn't that simple? Didn't that work out?
Okay, that's fine, but where do you classify someone who has ambiguous genitalia?
Outliers.
They're just outliers.
That's the not even a percentage, is it? How many? What's the percentage of those people?
Are you talking
Not,
specifically for intersex issues?
yeah.
Fortunately, I've got this
I can't be. It
pre-prepared.
can't be.
Welcome. So,
Can't be that high. Good.
intersex conditions. Let me have a look. Funny enough, I do have this already open.
Sweet.
Population figures. Here we go. Comes out in numbers 1 in 1,500, 1 in 2,000 births. So how many people
How
in it?
many is that?
So the percentage is 0.05% or
Yeah.
0.07%. Okay, so
So I
one
mean
in
that's a
that's what? Sorry.
statistical anomaly,
Oh, it's a
right?
statistical anomaly. What's the population of the United States?
320 some odd million.
320 million. Like, okay, let me do the maths quickly on this. So you're like, let's pretend it's 400 million, 2000. So there are approximately 300,000 people in the United States who are classified as intersex. Now, would you classify that as a statistical anomaly?
From 320 or from
Sorry,
420
sorry,
million was your number you
sorry.
said?
There are 320 million people in the United
Yeah.
States, citizens of the
I
United
thought you
States.
round. I thought you wanted up. You didn't go up.
No, that was just me doing the maths in my head so I could work out like
Oh, okay.
it's a weird way I do maths. Apologies. Um, so there's approximately 320,000 people in the U.S. Who have ambiguous.
There is about 11 million to some odd million people living in the U.S. illegally. That's a lot bigger number. I mean, the 300,000 seems like a lot,
I'm not
but that's smaller than some small cities.
I'm not disagreeing with you that is a bigger number. What I'm getting at here is that do you consider the fact that affects enough that affects 320,000 people in your country? Do you think that perhaps there is a conversation to be had regarding how we view sex characteristics in reference to that? I would argue yes.
I mean, a conversation can be had, but I think that 300,000 is enough to say that it's the spectrum. I would sooner say that it's more consensus that it works out the way it works out for so many people. Like that they're just, you know what I'm saying? Like they're born with that part and it works out. Not like I said, it's such a small figure. It's less than the 97% climate thing. I mean, if
Okay, okay. How many
99.05% isn't consensus, what is?
how many veterans are currently alive in the United States?
Geez, I don't have that number. Do you have that one on hand?
No, I don't. I'm just kind of like trying to get a perspective here because, America, as far as I'm aware, does seem to kind of fucking love its big goddamn military. So like how many
I can
veterans
find that out.
how many veterans
20.4 million.
20.4 million out of 360. Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. Those are North Korean numbers. No, I'm joking.
Representing less than 10% of the total U.S. adult population.
Yeah,
Adult population.
that's fair enough. So these are people who are now no longer in the service. Is that correct?
Uh, yeah, because it says veterans.
Yeah, yeah.
Department of Veterans Affairs numbers.
I'm just going to quickly look up homeless veteran numbers in the US. Oh, fuck you selling me fucking statistics website subscription. You fucking lied to me. Let's have a look. Uh, by
Are you trying to
2000,
find a comparable statistic, or?
yeah, this works. Like in 2000, so estimates of the homeless population vary as these statistics are very difficult to obtain. In 2007, the first veterans of Operation Enduring Freedom Afghanistan and Operation Iraqi Freedom began to be documented in homeless shelters. By 2009, there were 154,000 homeless, with slightly less than half having served in South Vietnam. So that's a relatively comparable number. So
Close enough.
should we give a shit about homeless veterans?
Yes.
Okay, but you're not going to extend that courtesy to intersex people. Why
I
is
give a
that?
shit about them. I just don't think that it's enough to say that based on those number of people that I'm just going to consider sex a spectrum.
A spectrum. Okay, like
rather than a statistical anomaly.
okay, but I would argue that surely like
homeless veterans are a statistical anomaly. I think they should be addressed. I'm not trying to say let's just forget about them like they don't exist.
we talk
but
about
I'm not
intersex
trying to
people.
change all of it.
All of it.
Either
Okay.
way.
So in what way can we address the question of intersex?
I don't know what's the problem they have.
Well,
with
there are
addressing?
intersex advocacy groups. You want to know what their concerns are?
Yes,
Right.
because
Okay.
I don't hear that. What I hear about is the concerns of the people who think they're both genders or no gender.
I know,
or demigirl.
I know, and it
That's
gets
all
and
you hear
I
about.
know, and it goes
It's
viral,
just
and it gets a lot
ridiculous.
of upvotes, and it gets a lot of likes, but that really doesn't represent what the conversation actually being had is.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Right,
It'd be nice if you
the people that
inject some
shout
sense.
the loudest are heard the most. That doesn't make them
Yes.
the most.
Please
Right.
interject some sense.
Yeah, right. Okay, so generally, there's a question of physical integrity and bodily autonomy. So there is a campaign for to do with. This isn't just in the US, by the way. This tends to be like intersex advocacy groups internationally. So there is a practice, and like this person is cited quite a lot anyway, often with regards to transgender issues as well. But they're advocating against medical intervention early on in children that manifest as intersex.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
rather
because
than
they'll do something if they can.
so rather than deciding the sex for the child, let the child grow up, or at least grow up to the point where it has a grasp of that concept, and let the child decide for itself.
See, this is sensible.
Yes.
You wouldn't get any complaints out of me for this.
Okay.
What that translates into, though, is people raising their perfectly healthy cis babies as gender neutral and letting them decide that way.
But who gives a shit?
Well, I give a shit when it permeates throughout, when famous people are promoting it as a good idea. And the thing that you're talking about never gets brought up because no one cares. Sounds like a perfectly reasonable.
Again, like this is not hard to find. Like it's just this doesn't get the upvotes.
It doesn't even get brought up that I see.
I know. It's almost as
It'd
if
be such a simple.
I know,
it'd be
it's
such a
almost
simple
as
issue
if
too.
it's almost as if opinion pieces and content generators online have to make these things so simple and like so bombastic and ridiculous that they become a shadow of what they actually are. Because what I'm telling you right now is it's this shit that is the important stuff. This is the stuff that we.
And it sounds like such a very thing that could be such bipartisan agreement on too.
I completely agree with you.
Sound like
I
a hard
completely
issue
agree with
at all.
you. But welcome to populism, my friend. Welcome to late stage capitalism. This shit gets the upvotes. This shit gets the ad revenue. This is why it enters the public consciousness. This is why the Overton window is what it is.
So we can't fix any of the issues that would be easy to fix because we would all agree on it. And what we're bombarded with is the outrageous issues that we can agree on but are such insignificant issues that aren't being addressed.
Well, it's because
But
it's
we have to
what
stay
can you
focused
condense down into a single headline? I'll put it like that.
No. Girls' school can't say girls anymore.
Yeah,
that's a lot
there you
easier
go.
than what you
There's
just
a
said.
click. There's a click. There's my ad revenue. Done.
That's a lot easier than summing up
Yeah,
what you said.
then like, oh, okay,
Summing
look,
up what you said would be very hard.
understand is here that the science behind what sex is actually quite diverse, and sex is in actual fact a spectrum. So let me drop some science on you. There's this condition where some people are born with an extra X chromosome, and that means that they manifest predominantly as physically female, nonetheless have the reproductive capacity of a male. There are women in this world who have an XY chromosome, who have a fully functioning uterus and womb, but nonetheless are male. Go figure.
And none of these are my gripes. And I would never have that gripe if that's all I
Yeah,
saw.
I mean, I
would have such no gripe at all.
Here's the thing, and I never said that you. I never thought that you did. I never
feel
claimed
used.
that you did. But like when you said like, well, what is a woman? In my head, I was like, well, it's this bell curve, it's this spectrum. But like when you say what is a woman, like what you're really kind of talking about is this debate and how it's been framed. Like, so like anyway. So like this is just like the science as it is today. Let me just be clear on this. Right?
Still, then you said it was down to characteristics. Then, so then isn't that?
Yeah, go on.
Isn't that just so like? And I hate to say this again, as if it's the debate as it's being framed, but aren't those just considered a social construct too? Like we wouldn't all act the way we do if it wasn't for society telling men that they have to act masculine and women that they have to act feminine. Through adverts and movies and television and all that good stuff.
Social construct. Oh, sorry. What are we
right.
talking about? Like I would argue.
Well, I mean, so when you were talking about before, when I said what makes a woman, and you said some things about acting in a certain feminine way or different ways.
Oh no, I was talking about feminine traits and masculine traits. So feminine traits would be things like pronounced adipose tissue on your chest. We would call them tits or breasts. You would look at like the level of development of the things like labia majoris and the uterus and womb and the ovaries. There's developmental traits that are different for men and women. So boys throughout their growth period until they become go through adolescence, pubescence, adolescence, and then finally adulthood, ultimately tend to end up taller. But in the development cycle for girls, when they're in puberty, they tend to be taller than male. Like all of this would be classified as a feminine-like trait, and that's to do with hormone distributions and things like that. Then you've got like the late end of it, like the maximal power that muscle fibers can generate. In men, it tends to be 30% higher than in women. Then you've got like things like maximal VO2 output and shit like that. Like all of this stuff kind of are traits that are associated with. It's not saying that it is exclusively male or exclusively female. It's two bell curves. It's a bell curve distribution.
A lot of this we can change, and a lot of this we can. Some of this we can't.
Yeah, I completely agree, but that doesn't change the fact that that those are traits that allow us to do this kind of bi-category system. But in reality, all of it is a spectrum. And if you're looking at like intersex things, that can be to do with metabolic issues. So, for example, the body is completely immune to the effects of estrogen or testosterone, which can mean that for all intensive purposes, you look like a girl, but that's because your testes never and genitals never developed because they were not responding to testosterone. So you could look like a woman completely. Your genitalia would look female. But you are nonetheless male. As in, your sex is nonetheless male. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, but I have... And I hate that my mind is caught in this framing, but I just don't see those type of people having the same, even close to the same, like you said, the issue that they advocate for. They don't have anywhere close to the same issues that are getting brought up. They're not worried about where they're going to the bathroom. They go to the bathroom. No one stops them.
Who gives a shit? Oh, sorry.
Well,
Who gives? Sorry, no. Sorry. When I say who gives a shit, what I mean is who gives a shit who goes in what bathroom.
Well, I agree with you. I'm just saying some people are trying to stop some people. I'm not.
Yeah. My question is why.
Oh, I don't fucking care. I spend 3 seconds. I spend as little time as I can in the bathroom. I get in there, I pee, and I leave. I don't look at the other people if I can help it, so I don't really
Exactly.
care.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, the intersex people they're not concerned whatsoever about any of these bills. No one's questioning them. If they look female and their parts are female and they're
Oh
nonetheless on
no,
the inside
no,
male,
no.
they're
So,
walking right into the female bathroom and no one's giving a shit.
oh, the
It's the
yeah.
guy who's wearing the dress who looks way out of place who they're worried about.
Has that ever happened?
I don't know. But I imagine I've seen those pictures of those people who don't pass. They got to use the bathroom too.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
I
know that they
agree.
assault anyone or do anything, but they probably walk into the female bathroom and the women look at them because it looks like a man's wearing a dress or whatever, and they look
Well, I mean,
funny. And the
I
guy
hate
pees
to,
and leaves. I'm not saying it's a big deal. I'm just saying that to some
I
people it
hate to
is.
boil this down to statistics, but earlier you were ready to write off 300,000 people. My question is, what level of incidence is this? What level of an issue
I have
is
no
this
idea.
really? Right. So my question is,
Probably a very, very small one.
right. So do we completely,
Not worth addressing at
right?
all.
No, no. The question to me is, do we deny uh, a person's right to identify and expect a certain level of treatment and courtesy? Do
No,
we
not at
deny
all.
them that so that a very minute level of discomfort, shall we say, is avoided?
I wouldn't say so. No.
Right. Okay. So, like, what's the issue?
I don't know. I'm not an advocate like that. The only point I was trying to make is like when I'm talking about like the issues that get, the clicks, right? The click issues,
Yep.
which even though they're just pumped out into the public sphere like that to get the clicks, they are actually things that are going on. Like these bathroom bills are happening and all these other weird debates are happening. It's just that probably not by many people who care. The actual intersex people, the ones who we should be concerned about, are not experiencing these same drawbacks,
Oh,
I
I
would
need
say.
to. I sorry. I just need to clarify something here. So the issues experienced by intersex people, sometimes there is some overlap with people who are transgender. But the reason
Probably.
I bring up intersex people is because that they are a good example when addressing the issue of the idea of what is sex. What is a person's
No, I
sex?
understand.
What is a person's gender is a completely different conversation, which I'm hoping we do touch on, and like you are getting close to kind of flirting with that.
Gender in a way, right?
Yeah, so like, what go
Used to
like
just match up. There didn't used to be a distinction in my early
no, no,
era.
no, no. Let me just be perfectly clear here. These people have always existed. It's just we
Oh
weren't
no, I'm not
we
saying that
just
at all.
weren't cognizant of it because we weren't necessarily exposed to it.
Well, I would say that they always existed, and we just considered them different ends of the spectrum.
No,
Like you're saying, we just
no,
didn't make up.
sir, no,
Well, like
sir. Historically, there
I
was a
knew
huge
very.
level of infanticide and putting up for adoption of children who are born into sex.
But I knew. Well, I'm not talking about intersex. I'm just talking about. You said some of these issues overlap with the other
Oh,
trans
right,
people and all
yeah,
that. Intersex people have
yeah,
always existed, sure.
yeah.
I'm just saying that even the other people, even the people who who are trans now, and it's just the dysphoria or whatever it is, they existed too way back when.
Yes,
All of them existed. It's just that we didn't have names for it.
sure.
We just that was a feminine guy, or that was a more, what do we call it, a butch female, or however it
Yeah,
was. We just
yeah.
didn't
Or
You didn't come
tomboy.
up with a
UK
different
would be like tomboy and shit.
characteristics for it. You were still that same sex slash gender. You were male or female. You were just a different variation of it.
Sure.
Everything has a name now, I guess. I don't know. But the intersex people is just that's what always gets brought up
What's that?
in the other topics. So there must be a lot more overlapping than I'm aware of,
Sorry,
because those are the ones that always get brought up for the
what
clickbait
ones?
topics.
Sorry, we talking about transgender
Any of the
issues.
clickbait topics, any of the
Okay.
when it comes up, like when the woman put the billboard up that said a woman is adult human female, the definition of woman or whatever.
Okay.
Or another one who wore it on a shirt and said she got kicked out of a bar, although she could have been more abusive. It's disputed. And so when the question always comes up on these issues that, what is a woman? And then the intersex people are mentioned. Now, their issues are never discussed. They're just used as kind of the pivot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
We're trying to talk about, like, and it's just a clickbait conversation. What the discussion will be, this store is going to go all gender neutral now or something, such. And you talk about like we were saying, the outlier, like the guy who doesn't pass or whatever. We're talking about, or the people who, who switch. We're not talking about the intersex people. And what we have in that discussion, and then the other intersex people get brought up as like, well, sex is different, or is this all is a spectrum because of what you're saying. But I don't know that their issues are the same issues. That's why I'm saying. So if it overlaps, I don't hear about the
Oh no.
overlap.
Okay, sorry. Let me be clear. When I say overlap, that's not me saying like the issues are completely identical. I'm saying that
No, no, no.
there are certain areas with issues experienced that are similar, and that's what I mean by overlap.
Right. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Which
So
areas?
what? So some of those areas can be if you were assigned the wrong gender um, when you were born, you had medical intervention that was made on your behalf, which you had no say in,
Right.
and you physiologically appear, say, male, but
Hmm.
you're as you grow up, you feel like, well, actually, I don't recognize this. There's something wrong here, and then then you find out, well, when you were born, you were intersex. You
Right.
were born with this condition, and it was decided that this would be your gender, this would be your sex. So then you have to kind of negotiate that minefield as like, well, does this now mean that does this now actually mean I should be a woman, or or does it mean, well, I shouldn't have been modified at all and just left the way I was? Because what the fuck is wrong with me? Like,
Right.
why can't I have ambiguous,
Sure. Why
genitalia?
not?
Yeah. So like, this isn't me saying like it's a binary choice, either this or that. It's, there are other conversations, and I'm sure that there are intersex people out there who, live their lives, the whole of their life as, intersex. They don't fall one way or the other.
And so you're saying this is an issue similar to the trans issue because they feel the same way, yet they weren't quite operated on when they were young.
No,
It's just a mental thing.
I'm saying that a decision was made. Well, this isn't the overlap. They were
Assigned a
Yeah, they
gender
were
or a
assigned
sex,
a
whatever you want to call it.
sex. Yeah,
Right.
I get a bit hazy with intersex people as to what you should, whether or not it's a gender thing or a sex thing, or like, or if
I
it's
think with them it's a sex thing.
yeah. Um, so I think you understand what I'm trying to say anyway. So like
Right.
if they're assigned the wrong sex, okay, are they technically at that point trans? See what I'm saying? Because their
I
body
understand
does
what you're
not
saying. So you just kind
match
of
their
is
internal
because that's the same issue in a way.
Yes. So they have to battle with this issue of body dysphoria because their sex does not match their gender.
Right, and that's kind of what I was going for. They kind of
Yeah.
feel the same way, but they feel it in a different way than the trans person does,
The
who
root
feels it
cause
more
of
in a
it,
mental way.
yeah, the root cause of it is that yeah, mental way is a good one, but then interestingly enough, they have done studies on people who have
No, the brains. No, I know. I've
yeah,
seen all
yeah,
that.
and like trans people
How
tend
it
to
kind
have
of looks
hyper
more like a male
masculine or
brain
hyper
or all
feminine.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very specific though. It says because generally, if you look at a brain, you can't tell the gender of that brain, but there are outliers, as in there are traits that come together and create this bell curve again, much like with the physiology of a person and the development cycle of a person. That creates these clusters, these peaks, and in
Hmm.
these peaks are called hyper female and hyper masculine, and you tend to see a higher incidence of hypermasculine and hyperfeminine um, brains in trans people, and it's for the gender that
They
yeah
are identifying as.
yeah they are yeah.
No, yeah, I've seen that.
So
No, and I have no problem with that. I get that. That
and
has
given
to.
you
I
know
have a friend I talked about to
yeah,
about
and
this.
given how our level of understanding of the human body and biology and human
Oh yeah,
sciences is
don't
changing,
know
it
it all by
wouldn't
any
surprise me if eventually transgenderism falls under the bracket of under the umbrella of intersex. It's just
means. Possible.
here the issue is with brain physiology, if that makes sense.
And I have less problem with that. Like, and that's also, I've had that discussion. I've seen, like I said, I've seen those pictures, and I'm pretty good with that. Uh, you can't help that. That just happens. If your brain is wired a different way. Like I said, I got a friend on Facebook who mother of two, but now it's a little guy, little boy,
I'm with you. Yeah.
changed up. Um, husband's really good about it too.
Yeah.
Uh, he still has heterosexual sex, so it's like, what does he care? Um,
I'm with you.
and I'm fine with that
Fair.
because at least
I'd argue that's
she's
between
picking one or
them.
the
I don't
other.
really need to know.
He's picking one or the other. Well, I'm just saying she's
Yeah.
not. You can't really. It's different when you go male to female. You can get the Johnson taken off. She can't add. You know what I mean?
I
And
do
even if
know
she
what I
could,
do know what you're saying. Technically, you can
But
add.
anyway, the
It's
point is, I'm misgendering now. I'm all fucked up. But the point
yeah.
is,
No, it's yeah.
I'm okay with that because, well, I mean, I guess in my Neanderthalish type brain, you're still picking one of the two, and so I still get my binary choice that way. See,
You get your binary choice.
I get my best right. I get to look at it still. If you're a male and you want to be a female, and the brain stuff shows that happens,
Right.
and vice versa. So then you're still picking then one or the other. You're not showing intersex brain.
Yeah.
At least I don't think that's happened. So you're still kind of on that one of the other thing. It's
Yeah.
all the ambiguous stuff that gets thrown into because the
Mind if I
intersex
ask you
people still
something?
present one way or another.
No,
right?
they don't.
They
No.
don't.
Intersex people can phase like look, I'd need to send you an image.
You wouldn't.
Like so no, like they don't necessarily have fully developed genitalia, so you can have like this.
No. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about present. That's a term that means like when they walk out into the world, they
So
look one way,
when they walk out
female
into
or
the
male.
world, when they walk out into the world, they can have a full beard and well-developed breasts.
And they do that a lot.
What do you mean they
I
do
don't see
that?
that. I don't see a lot of full-breasted bearded men walking around.
Well, as we discussed earlier, there's 300,000 in the States.
Yes, but with full breasts and a beard, I'd think that number would be even lower.
My point there is, yeah, no, I understand that, but my point is, like, why would you see that?
Well, that's the point that I'm kind of making is that they're. I mean, and I'm assuming this. I guess I don't know. I don't know if you can even find this out, but I would guess that they pass mostly for one or the other.
I'll tell you what, I've got an image here.
I'm sure there are people who are ambiguous looking. I remember, that's the thing. I remember this picture I have of this, who is a woman now, but at the time was a guy. And I would send the pictures of this guy with just like little shorts on, no top or whatever. And it looks like you're just looking at the hottest but yet flat-chestedest woman you've ever seen in your life.
Yep.
But you're not.
Right.
You're looking at it, and it's not even intersex. This is just a man, just a regular guy.
Yeah, I've just sent you an image of like an intersex convention.
Who eventually did the gender change. A model, famous model, actually.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. They're on here.
She's what?
Are you talking about Hannah Gaby Odell?
I don't freaking know. Let me see.
I'll just send you an image of her because she is intersex.
I have the picture I'm talking about on my page somewhere.
All right, well, I'm sending it to you now.
Let me do that. I got this other picture. What am I looking at in this one?
Okay, so this is a number of people who attended an intersex advocacy conference in Malta. It's on the Wikipedia page for intersex.
Nice.
And like you were talking about, like they're passing. Well, like
I question the gender of none of these people.
okay, that's fair. What about?
I see them, and whether they are or not, my initial just looking at them, like as I look at them, whether they would say to me, "Nope, I'm a woman underneath" or whatever, irrelevant. When I look at them, I would tell you each one. There's a woman. There's a woman. There's a man. There's a woman. There's a. You know what I'm saying? It's not would not be in
Okay,
dispute.
now I do have a question for you though. Do you think that they look the way that they do now today because they have had to adjust what they wear and how they speak and how do you think that they felt pushed by society to adopt one of the binary options and they felt that society would not accept an ambiguous gender?
I don't know. I don't.
No, the reason I bring this up is because my issue here is like, who gives a fuck? Okay.
Well, I mean,
let a person.
The one over here, the woman in the striped shirt here, doesn't look like she's trying too hard. second from the
Yeah,
bottom on the
I mean, like,
left.
yeah. The thing here is though, like man is not an island, right? Human beings are not an island. We live in an environment that tells us what is acceptable behavior and what is unacceptable behavior. Now, does a person representing themselves as female but actually being male, is that really so unacceptable to society? This is what I mean by, do we
No,
really give a shit?
it's been happening. That's been happening since I was a kid.
Yeah,
We called them drag queens, but it was the same
yeah,
thing.
yeah. Well, drag queens still exist.
Similar, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. My point
Well,
is,
it's similar,
yeah, but it's also in a very specific framework. You know, you're going to like a
right?
burlesque show, you might see a drag queen there, right?
Right, right,
So
right.
like
It's
that's in
not
that
all
context.
the time kind of a thing usually, right?
Yeah.
But no, I don't. No, I really don't think it is. My more problem has probably been baited by the click stuff in that it looks as if what we're deciding to do, and it's not a widespread thing, it is happening slowly and insanely incrementally. But
I,
what it looks like to me is that we're just kind of saying, all right, well, what we're going to do is we're going to level every like this the society binary choices you were just referring to earlier.
yes.
We're going to get rid of those and just go neutral all the way down. What's worked for us so far, we're going to toss that out the side.
Okay. What makes you think like that? That's an interesting take. Now,
Mm.
uh, because here's
There's
how.
the woman I was telling you about.
Yeah, no, please send it to me. What I was
I
going to
just
say,
found it.
what I wanted to ask there was like, why do you feel it is a push for this kind of complete neutral aspect, or when
Like I said,
like
that's
because
because I think that's what I see on the clicks.
my experience of this personally has been that well, actually no, it's just about acknowledging that these people exist. So for the stream, this is the image.
And that's a male, by the way, at that point, so don't, it's not like you're showing a topless woman.
Yes. Oh, I'm sure Facebook will be. I'm sure YouTube will be really understanding.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Um. So, sorry, is this person intersex or is this person trans?
I believe that was a male at the time, and now a female.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
Well,
just.
trans female now.
Yeah. Okay. I get you. Trans woman. Um.
But at the time, I suppose very ambiguous. You mean I can't really tell that much.
Yeah. Like the reason I'm querying it is because you know. Um.
A model of some kind. I forget what her name is.
Yeah, but like
Now, yeah.
the reason I brought up intersex people specifically was to do with
Oh,
this idea that well you know if we gender as a spectrum is one thing, but then you also have to recognize that sex is also a sort of spectrum, and is itself a sort of social construct because a lot of the cues that we use to determine these things are inherently flawed and don't actually represent reality, which is why intersex conditions exist. So, you know, to say that these things are abnormal is to kind of deny reality. Does that make sense? Abnormal's the wrong word there, but to say that they are.
well, I mean, I don't even know there is, and we've had that discussion before in the group where uh, the reason you want to say it's the wrong word is because it sounds negative. But I don't know why. It's things that are abnormal doesn't mean they're wrong. Now sometimes it does show
Oh,
up
the
when you have
reason
an
I. No,
abnormal
it's not because
growth
it's
on your
negative.
body.
Sorry, let me just be clear. It's not because it's negative, it's because it's denying reality.
Hmm.
And that's literally the one thing that I'm trying to not do here with this statement. The reality is that most people's concept of sex is incorrect. Of a person's sex is completely incorrect. That's the reality. Okay? Everything else that's built up around it is social. What our concept of sex actually is entirely a social construct. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean it does because I know what the contract is you're talking about. I just don't know. Then if it's wrong, how did it work so well? And what's right? Because now I'm in a confused territory. You understand? Like now,
Yes.
you're saying that everything I've known my whole life has been wrong. Now it looked like it worked out for me,
You
but it's
understand
or
that
at
you
least not.
understand that you understand that something can be wrong but still give decent results, right?
Hmm.
So
Maybe that, how wrong is it?
for example, so for example, it could be like folklore that it's like don't wear chainmail, Don't take the battlefield in chainmail if there's a lightning storm because it angers Thor. Okay, now the rationale for that is because it
All
angers
right, all
Thor.
right.
Okay, but in reality, it's because metal is a conductor and it will attract lightning to you. You're turning
Right,
yourself into a
right.
conductor. That's the reality,
I get
right?
you. I
So
get you. Yeah.
yes, it functions, but does that make it correct? So what? Sorry, so
Well,
when I say wrong, okay, I misspoke. It's an incomplete picture, okay, and what is being advocated for is a better understanding of that picture, and so we can all like interact with each other in a better way. That's literally all this is talking about, okay. So that the intersection,
I wish it came across that way.
I completely agree with you, but
The messaging needs to be improved. It has a
I
PR
completely
is
agree with you, but
terrible.
like I said, this is a consequence of late stage capitalism. Sorry, I hate to be
Well,
that kind of like definitive about it, but based on everything I know, that's literally what this is.
well, I don't know what to say to that because I'm not sure how that works out. But I'm assuming when you say that it's because the clicks get the money and capitalism is hell bent on getting money. But I like money, so I'm not going to say
It's
anything bad about that.
because no, I understand that. Okay, you are sort of no. Okay, here's the thing: we are now at the point where our online digital footprint is itself a commodity.
Right.
Okay, this is late stage capitalism, where abstract concepts and digital zeros and ones have a monetary value to them that are actually nothing. They do not contribute to society in any tangible way. They do not put food in our bellies. They do not clean water. They do not improve our health. Right? None of this stuff improves what's the word, improves our standard of living, but nonetheless it has a value, and this is what I'm referring to by late stage capitalism, because capitalism is a really great way of finding the value of something. The problem is when that something that you're finding a value in doesn't actually offer anything to society. That makes sense?
But when you say, but when you say late stage, it sounds so terminal.
Oh yeah, because the next stage is a
Why does that
corporatocracy.
sound? Why this just sounds bad? This doesn't sound good like you're saying it's like in a good way. It sounds like you're saying in a bad way.
Yeah, it is, because the result of late stage capitalism is that politics has become completely polarized. Every issue has become ideological. Every what's the word? Any attempt at actually cogent political discourse, or indeed cogent discourse on any subject, is met with hostility and tribalism. Yeah, I'd say that is pretty bad.
But you see, when you say it like that, it kind of sounds like it won't get better and it'll just explode.
It won't get better. Sorry,
Yeah, see,
could you repeat your last sentence? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
it'll just explode or implode.
Oh, I
See, because
see. Mm.
it sounds like when you say late stage capitalism, it sounds like then that's going to be over soon,
Yeah.
one way or another.
Oh,
Either it'll get better or it'll just blow up.
um, yeah. Actually, yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'd say that's accurate. Yeah.
Well, it just doesn't sound like you're saying. It doesn't sound. I'm not getting the feeling that the former is more what you're envisioning.
Uh, the
That
f-
things won't just self-correct and everything's going to work out. That doesn't sound like what you're going for. It
oh
sounds
no,
like you're
I
going for
like
the other
no. Sorry,
part.
no, no. Let me be clear. It can go one
Yeah,
of
you're going
two.
for the other part.
No, no, no. It can go one of two ways. When I said what I said, I was simply saying that it can go one of two. I wasn't specifically alluding to that, but now that you
Okay.
bring it up, there it can go one of two
Well,
ways. As of yet, in what I said there, it's 50-50. If you're asking me to expand on it, I'm happy to, as to what I actually think will happen. But that's a tangent, if that makes
oh,
sense. The reason I said
yeah, I
late stage
understand.
capitalism is because you had early kind of like what's the word, mercantilism. Okay, and then eventually Adam Smith wrote Wealth of Nations, and you had early stage capitalism. And then that existed basically in one form or another till when did it really kind of get reform? Um, It would probably be it'd be Reagan, I think, would be the no, that's wrong. So you had Adam Smith, then you had like the New Deal. Was it the New Deal?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
FDR.
yeah, FDR. All of that shit happened. The whole new kind of like paradigm shift when it came to capitalism, what capitalism could and couldn't do, and stuff like that. And then that continued until you had Reagan, and we
Actually,
are
that was
now in the
before that.
late
Teddy
stage of Reagan.
Roosevelt.
Oh, is
Teddy Roosevelt did that too.
yeah, okay,
He kind of was the first guy to step in and break up big monopolies and banks and
yeah,
take control away from some of the elite and the richest of the rich and whatnot.
yeah.
And now you say we're in late stage Reagan. Well, Reagan wasn't a good theory. We let the actor decide our economic
We're
policy.
still in
Reagan that off.
Reaganomics, my friend. And it's not specifically
Yeah,
just Reagan; it was also Thatcher. But that neoliberal, like regulation is bad. The market must be free to. The market must be as unregulated as possible to ensure maximum efficiency.
right,
Essentially,
right, right.
any form of regulation is bad. Um,
So eventually it gets out of control, or there's a lot of regulation.
Eventually, what
You know?
happens is, uh, what happens is you get what's known as the corporatocracy. That's literally what we're in now, which is where a series of very small corporations essentially own the world. A good prime example would be Disney. The 10 highest grossing films this year have all been Disney, or owned by a Disney subsidiary. Welcome to late stage capitalism.
I never hear you say that. It reminds me of people who say that that it's dying or dead or something like that, and I just wonder
What's dying?
what's going to replace it.
Well, you've got two options. You've got a world where basically corporations own everything and essentially control the media and the Overton window of the populace. The government is there purely as kind of like a shill representative to represent corporate interests. In many ways, that already exists quite heavily today.
A little
Um,
bit.
like we're still kind of digging our claws in on some things, so you'll have these huge discussions over like the right to unionize and how much um, what the nature of jobs contractors, the efficacy of 0-hour contracts. We'll have these little conversations about like what's right and wrong, okay? But
Mm.
in reality, it's all leaning towards like you ain't unionizing. If you are, we as your employer have the right to throw you out in the fucking dirt. Uh, like if you miss a payment on something, we can break into your property and take something. We can basically get into your property and recoup it, and you have to pay for our legal fees for the fucking hassle of it, right? Like, or like if we set up a bottling factory in your fucking country, and your local aquifer doesn't provide enough fresh water, we're gonna fucking drive into the Amazon rainforest and steal it from like local tribes people. Welcome to corporate world, like the corporate world, right? This isn't some grand conspiracy. This is literally what is going on right now. The environmental impact on our planet is literally a result of rampant consumerism as it exists today, and all it has done is benefit the 1%. The 1.5 trillion bailout that the US did, all it did was benefit the 1% in the US. It was this isn't like some conspiracy. This literally happened. And
We get little
our
trinkets out
anger
of it.
over this is just non-existent. Edward Snowden does the biggest release of like violation of civil
Oh,
liberty and your personal freedom, and
yeah, no.
fucking crickets. No one
Yeah,
gives
no
a
one
shit,
cared.
right?
You're
And
right.
it's
Yeah, no, you're
worse.
absolutely right.
No, and it's worse because the bigger con is what's going on in the corporate world. Your data, your online purchases, your online activity, your viewing preferences, all of this shit is data that's up for grabs. It is the most valuable commodity on the planet now. What does that contribute to anything? Sorry, I'm getting riled up. Like I don't. If it sounds like I'm angry, I'm not actually angry. It's just like this is
We
what the
get
world is right now.
we
Um,
get little trinkets from it though. Little things.
Exactly. And it's bread and circuses. Keep the fucking working force entertained, like so they don't realize how much we fuck them. And I'm not exaggerating here. We have been fucked. In the 60s, a blue collar black man in the U.S. could work a steady job and put his kids through college. The
Oh yeah.
fuck is he doing now?
Nothing. My
Exactly.
father in the 70s and the 80s was a furniture mover.
Yeah.
That's all he did. He delivered the couch and the refrigerator to your house and whatnot. And he was able to buy property.
Yeah.
And back he had a 2-flat, and then back before satellite was a thing, he had one in his backyard, like one of the big motherfuckers that literally moved when you changed channels. Like
Yeah.
like he had money, and all he did was a blue collar job.
Yeah.
And
That's
he was
all
able
gone.
to buy
That's all
property.
gone. That's all gone. A working class person, a blue collar person in the U.S. That is never happening. That person
Because
that
pay
that
rate
person
has
is living
not
in.
met inflation.
Yeah. Why is that? Because corporations have protected their bottom line and are working
Yeah.
from one
Oh,
profit,
I know that. Yeah,
working
they make
from
more
one
money and we
profit
make
quarter
less.
to the next, and in the process of that socio-economic Darwinist game that's going on, companies have eaten one another to the point now where it is impossible to compete. You are like how many internet providers do you have in the U.S.?
Oh yeah, no, they're gone.
Yeah.
I was here when they got eaten alive.
Right. So
I could
I'm
tell you
sorry.
names of some of the different companies I
Yeah.
had that are now extinct because they got bought the fuck out, and now it's one per area.
Yeah, and it's basically the same in the UK. And it's the
It's a
same in
monopoly,
most.
and those are illegal.
Oh no,
But
no,
we
they're
don't do
not
shit about it.
monopolies. No, here's the thing: they're not monopolies. They're oligopolies. So a monopoly is where it's one company.
Well, no, I know, but they work in conjunction with each other. It's a conspiracy to create a monopoly
No, it's
without
just
actually
like
doing
look.
it.
It's like look. We can like waste time competing each other, or we could just agree like we could just
This is
zone it
my
up and
area,
fucking do whatever
right?
the fuck we want.
Yeah,
How about that? Yeah, pretty much that.
exactly. They carve it up, and
So
then
they
you can't say shit because who are you going to switch to?
exactly. So my
No,
point,
I know. That's the
yeah,
scam.
yeah. So this is, like I said, this is late stage capitalism. This is what the free market has given you. Okay, all of this
And
got
you
sold.
can't compete.
All of this got sold to us as like the neoliberal idea under Thatcher and Reagan. I mean, there were people before them pushing for it as well, but like Reaganomics stuck because it's a catchy name. And in the UK, we fucking love to bitch about Thatcher, but this is it, right? This was like a relaxing of antitrust laws, so like companies could become fucking massive, get to the point where like they're too big to bail. Sorry, they're too big to fail. It's not that they're too big to bail out. It's that if this fucking company goes under, we are fucked. The level of unemployment that occurs if this company goes under, the GDP impact if this company gets fucking wiped out, nah, fuck that. Use taxpayer money to bail it out.
That's exactly what Bernie was saying about the banks too. Because there used to be a lot more banks. There used to be little personal banks and little community banks.
Cooperatives and things like that. And here's the
taken over.
and here's the rub, right? Here's the rub. All socialism argues is that the worker has a stake in the capital that he's working in, right? So if you work in a supermarket, you work in a cooperative, right? You, as an employee, have a stake in that company. Whether or not that's represented as shares, or whether or not that's represented as representation on the board that decides the direction of the company, you, as an employee, have a stake in all of the money that is tied up in that company. Do you think Jeff Bezos would be a fucking trillionaire if that was the model?
If every employee he ever hired got a stake, fuck no.
Not just that, every company under capitalism was operating.
That's what I'm saying. There would be not one single probably millionaire.
Exactly, which is why they do everything to try and stop it from happening. Which is why they turn communism into. Sorry, which is why they turn the term socialism into anything left of Reagan and Thatcher. That is why the Overton window is what it is today. That is why everything is as polarized as it is. There's the bottom line. There's how we got fucked.
I liked it back 20, 30 years ago when there was a lot more, when a small guy could make his own company and compete.
Yeah, and he absolutely could. But that just doesn't happen now.
No, not anymore.
Because it's too consolidated. They're too massive. You cannot compete.
The small people get eaten alive by the chains and everyone who can afford to sell it for cheaper.
Yeah.
No, because you can't. You can't at all. Not when you're one guy buying product to try to sell. You're not getting the discount that the massive people who are buying millions of times more product than you are, and then you distribute it to all their different little branches, and then
Yeah.
they can sell it for a discount brand. Your little corner store and compete with Walmart, you can get fucked.
Yeah, no, completely.
You So I mean, it's just you have some money and you open a store. When I was younger, and I would talk to my mother about different things, and back in the day, she would talk about that. When you were young, because there was a lot of storefronts on the streets and the main streets. By the time I got old enough to consider that, and she brought up, I says, Mom, that's not worth it. Everyone's going out of business. They open up and they close down in 2 months.
Yeah.
That's what happens now, and that's
Yeah.
what's continued to happen now.
Yeah. And at the same time, while you're at it, we're gonna bombard you with advertisements telling you that what you have is not enough. That like the toaster you have needs to be chrome or whatever the fuck it is. Like, the advertising industry is truly ginormous, and all it does is pitch you a fucking idea. It is not pitching you something that benefits you or that you need. It is convincing you that you need it. There is a world of difference between needing something and being convinced that you need something.
Yeah, do you remember the old advertisements? You can go back and look at the black and white TV advertisements. At least a little bit back then, they had to tell you more about the product
Yeah,
and try to sell it to you as what it was.
yeah,
Look
like,
at all the features on this. This is what it comes with. This is
yeah,
what it can do.
yeah. That like this, and this is like if a car advert was not pitching you an idea, every car advert would just be an advert of would be just telling you the technical statistics of the vehicle. This is the miles per gallon you're getting. This is its top
Instead,
speed.
you get the guy who picks up all the chicks in the vehicle,
Yeah.
or how cool he looks driving down the road with the song playing.
Yeah, that this
Fuck
car.
if the engine's gonna blow up next year.
Yeah, that this car gives him like personal freedom and liberty. He's an explorer.
Yeah.
He's like, this is it, right? Like they're pitching you an idea, right?
You could be that fucking guy.
Yeah, yeah, no, completely, right? And it
All you gotta do
works.
is buy this shit.
And it works.
Yeah, of course it does.
Right?
Well, of course it does. The price of the iPhone is testament to that.
Yeah, yeah, and they tell you like, oh, we want more cars sold because people need to make those cars and all this shit. They buy you into the idea. It's like you got to be a functioning cog in this fucking system that fucks you, and you need it to survive. But in reality, you don't. Like that's
Well,
the,
back in the
that's
back
the
in the
cog.
day, the guy who got the guy who got the job at the car factory made way good money.
Yeah, yeah, that was
Now,
the
they
blue
make-
collar guy.
they
That
make-
was the blue collar guy
they
who
make-
could buy a house,
They
put
make
his
better
kids through
than
college.
most now, but by no means are they living it up.
No, but you could plan for your future, right? You could put roots down. You could work towards something. You could get your own
Oh,
house,
yeah.
your property. You didn't have to worry about certain issues, right?
Now you just wonder if your paycheck's going to make rent and every end meet.
Yeah, exactly, right? The world is this is what I mean by late stage capitalism, okay? This is what happens when you deregulate and don't hold corporations to account. This is what happens when you relax on union rights. This is the result.
Stops working for the majority.
Absolutely.
It worked for the majority for a good long while, or at
Yeah,
least for the majority of people in.
Well, I mean, if you want to look at like the golden age in America, keep in mind in America, at the end of the Second World War, America was one of the few places in the world that was very well developed and hadn't been bombed the shit out of.
Right. No, we didn't have to rebuild anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I think at the end of the Second World War, I remember reading somewhere like America accounted for something like 40% of global GDP.
Oh, we were killing it.
Yeah, that's
I
your
wasn't
golden.
alive for the golden
Yeah,
age.
that's your golden age right there. The world needs you because you're 40% of its production capacity.
And even the little guy could, like you said, make his stake, get the good job, and then he could start making his plans and
Yeah.
mapping it out. And he was nobody 5 seconds ago. He just applied for some job and he got it, and all of a sudden he was about to become a pillar. Like he was going to have, be able to buy things and have a home and a family, and he had no worries about how many kids. He'd get a raise and he could raise a whole other kid.
Yeah.
Nowadays you can't have one. There is no. I talk to my wife about it now because we know a younger couple back where we used to live,
Yeah.
and they're in their early 20s and they just had a kid. And I was talking about it kind of like what you would think about in the old way, where they're not really ready yet, and they can't afford it. I thought, well, that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
You can't. They can't. They both have jobs. What am I talking about? It's not like they're going to all of a sudden make $10 more an hour and then be ready financially. That day's not coming. You wait
Yeah.
until you die then.
Yeah.
The thought that I'm having is an old world thought where you get a job and start, making some money and putting down. Nowadays
Yeah,
you
and
get a job and
it's not
you
because
got to find three other guys to share
yeah,
rent.
and it's got nothing to do with like the youth of today don't want to work hard. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with like, oh, they should have worked harder in school. Nah, it ain't that.
Right, no.
And it definitely has got fuck all to do with the amount of illegal Mexicans crossing the border. I can tell you that right
Well, I'm not talking about that at all.
No,
But
I know you're not, but
far,
my point is these are all the distractions that we get told. It's like,
well, now the jobs that they're taking are not taking any of the good jobs. They're just competing for all the regular jobs that aren't doing anybody any good anyway.
yeah.
The job working landscaping or doing anything.
Okay,
and it
okay. My
used to be
question,
those were good
my
jobs.
question here is this: do you think what's driving down wages is illegal immigration, or do you think what's driving down wages is the fact that lobbying groups representing corporate interests have been pushing for deregulation and
What's driving down wages is that they're not trying to pay the people more money because that hurts their bottom line.
precisely? So
I mean,
has
like
it
you talking
got?
about like Jeff Bezos or the Waltons, the people who own Walmart,
Yeah,
could give every employee they have a $3 an hour raise and not blink, but they're not
yeah,
gonna,
yeah.
because what's in it for them?
I know.
But
And
we
look,
have people who work at Walmart and who work at Amazon who also get government assistance because the money they make is not enough to live on.
yeah, and is it not a little bit insane? Do you not think your economy is fucking broken if the only way a person can put a roof over their fucking head is with taxpayer subsidy? While
Yeah, and
working
these people,
while working a
gainfully
full-time
employed,
job. Yeah, while working a
right?
full-time
Gainfully
job,
employed
maybe Bezos
at
needs
our
to
at,
increase their fucking wages. Like,
at some of our biggest multinational companies. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't like for me, I'm like, nah, don't raise minimum, raise minimum wage. Force them to raise wages in that company. I think how much you should do that should be directly proportional to your
The
market
reason
share.
they're forcing people to, the reason they want to raise minimum wage is because when the jobs left, when the factory jobs left to overseas and all that, adults had to get jobs that were typically assigned for young people to get into the workforce, your fast food jobs,
Yeah,
your jobs and adults have to try to raise a family working at McDonald's. I walk into McDonald's now and I don't see kids, it's all old people.
yeah,
When I was young, I walked into McDonald's, there's a bunch of kids maybe a couple of years older than me.
yeah, yeah,
But that's not the way it is anymore. So they want to raise minimum wage because they want everyone to start paying more because they're desperate. Now, all those companies could afford to do it.
yeah,
But what you get, though, is the outlier. That's what you have to hear about. Well, I run a small business and I employ 30 people, and I couldn't afford, I'd have to lay off half my workforce if we did this. And that's true for them, but that's a small percentage of people that's going to help.
And also, I would argue, is it beyond us really to exempt small business?
No, probably not, which is probably a good idea. It should probably be a restriction by how much that company's making, how many employees they have.
Yeah,
And we should look into things like how are those employees living, like the woman who has to have food stamps because she's not making enough working for Bezos or whatever. That's bullshit.
yeah. Well, no, I'm sorry. Like, yeah, if you're working for
Yeah.
Amazon but need food stamps, something's wrong there.
Yeah, and you know who covers that over here? You're never gonna guess. Only one person covers that story.
Who?
Tucker Carlson.
Get the fuck out of here!
That's who I heard
Oh
it from.
no! Oh fuck! Damn it! My worldview is shattered.
He was the one. He was the one out there bitching about the. He was the only one. Now, take AOC's side or not with the Amazon deal. He was the only one on her side, even though she fucked up what a tax credit is versus what real money is.
Yes.
She was still saying, why do we need to afford them a credit of $350 million? They can't afford it.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of the point she was making, even though she kind of flubbed it, and he agreed with her. Like, why do they need these big huge discounts to come put jobs in? They want to do that, right? Why do they need a big huge discount to do it? Is it because they want to make an extra $350 million? It's basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Or use it in some other way, or do whatever.
Yeah. The argument is that they invest that capital elsewhere that grows the economy. But like that's fucking bullshit. Like
It does a little, sure, it does a little bit, but with most of that goes into the pocket of one of the richest men in the world who I never heard of a decade ago.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, do you know that name is fairly fucking new, and he's one of
No,
the
I
richest men in the
completely
world.
agree with you. Jeff Bezos didn't come on my radar till about 2 years ago.
Yeah. So I mean, that was fast. Now
Yeah.
that shatters my argument for the little guy can't make it, but
So yeah, but he wasn't the little guy.
he didn't start
He
off.
wasn't a
he didn't
fucking
start off-
little guy. Like, don't play.
Well,
play
he didn't
to
start
this.
off. He didn't start off as big as he is now. He had to open his little Amazon thing or whatever he did, and it had to work. I mean, there was a lot of e-commerce sites going around back in the day, and he beat them. I got to give him that. There was a lot of different stores you went to and bought. And
Yeah,
I
okay,
remember
here's the
that.
thing, and this is the narrative that I've been trying to tell you and show you. Like, he beat them, yeah, and the consequence of that is that a single company can have such a massive market share that it dictates
No,
public
I agree
policy.
with you. I'm just saying that now no one else can beat him now.
Yeah, for me, that isn't.
What
For me, that isn't making it though. That isn't like
the road
that,
he took
yeah.
is not repeatable
Yeah,
now, and he has made it so.
yeah.
Well, him and a lot of others.
No, I completely agree.
And they crush whatever comes close to trying to get in their way now.
Yeah. I mean, to answer your question, to answer your point earlier, I can see this going one of two ways, essentially, which is that one of which is going to be really unpleasant for most of us.
See, now I was thinking about that, and I didn't want. That's what I was afraid of. Keep going.
Go on. What are you?
I know. I'm just saying. I kind of figured one of the ways was going to be unpleasant, and I don't want to hear that. I want to hear good news. But go ahead.
Well, I'll start with a good one.
I don't know. You are a lot more read into all of this than I am.
Yeah, I mean, and also let me just be clear.
socialism,
Like,
all
I
that.
am in no
Yeah.
way saying anything original. This isn't like an original thought by no one of consequence. Yours truly. This is like all of everything I've said here has been said before and known before. I'm only repeating what other people have like said and are saying.
Right. Oh, I knew
Um,
that.
Yeah, like let me just be clear. I'm not like some original gangster. So like the positive one is that people are just going to unplug from it, in the sense that people will remove themselves from the economy by any means necessary.
Hmm.
So you're going to start, and this is already happening in like the UK. People are going to start growing their own food. People are going to start disconnecting themselves from utility companies and start working in like cooperative environments. Like capitalism still exists, but it's in a completely different framework. That's the good one. Okay, that's the one that potentially has a chance, in my view. The other one, you go on.
Go ahead.
No, you've got something to say. Come on, I want to hear it.
That just didn't sound. I mean, I'm kind of going into this next one thinking that's going to be more logical because that one just doesn't sound likely. Not on a grand scale. Not to me living where I'm at.
No, yeah,
I just don't see it.
dude, I completely agree with you. And
Yeah.
yes, but if you're wanting a good outcome from this, this is literally what it would require. It would require you to decide that what you spend your money on is no longer the convenience of Amazon and Netflix, and you're not going to go to the movies and watch Disney. You're going to grow your own food. You're going to learn how to purify water.
No, they've got me already. That's not happening.
Right, there we go.
Ahead.
Right.
What's the more logical one?
The more likely one is that this consolidation of capital, as in who owns it, will just continue. The top 1% will continue to consolidate their wealth. The wiping out of the middle class will continue, and finally, what you have is this oligarchy that essentially controls every country on the planet in one way or another, with like unimaginable levels of wealth, and a working class that is just there to keep the gears turning. A consumer class, essentially.
We don't have the same gumption we used to have. What you're talking about sounds eerily familiar to what Roosevelt was talking about back when he, I forget what they called it, something buster. He busted up a lot of stuff. And he had the same kind of fears.
Yes.
that the entirely wealthy were getting entirely too much control over everything.
Yes.
But he felt when he did what he did, he thought he was averting an uprising, a future uprising.
Yeah. And he was.
Where the people would just grab their weapons and just go for these fucking people and take them out because
Yep.
they're the ones ruining their lives.
Yep.
And he saw that coming, and he said, these people don't see this coming, and I'm going to save them from themselves.
Yep.
And I kind of thought you might have been going more into that direction.
No, because that could never happen.
Yeah, we just don't have that gumption anymore.
No, it's not that we don't have that gumption. It's that, that would get stopped.
Oh, what do you mean? That's right. You know what? I forgot about none of you are armed. Damn.
No. Here's what would happen, right? The first group that tries to do that, or like the first kind of organized riot, if you like, the London riots is kind of
right.
The London riots is kind of a good example of this. What will happen is that somewhere someone will snap, and enough people will snap that it's a big enough event that it makes the news. And if it gains any kind of traction, you can guarantee that what will happen is an image of those people being fucking gunned down that goes viral. Or just dropped so fucking hard that no one else wants to fucking have a go. And the reason I say that is because that's exactly what happened to Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King.
The people had to go after him, though. That didn't stop anyone from having to go.
Oh, really? Sorry, how are race relations in the United States right now?
Well, that's a different question than what he was going for.
No, it isn't. It isn't.
But it is. He wasn't going for race relations. He was looking for actual rights, legitimate rights.
Sir. No, sir. Here's what was going on. He was trying to end Jim Crow, and he was trying to get black folk recognized, and like other minorities recognized as just as good and deserving of the same rights as white folk. He succeeded in that. He succeeded in that, let's be clear. But then what did he do? What did he do next? He went into working class America. Right? He now went to white working class men and like white working class families, right? And he said, "Hey, you guys as white working class people have a lot of the issues that we as black people experience because you're working class. We know economic deprivation. You know economic deprivation. You know how difficult that is. You know how shitty that makes the schools." And what was he doing? He was unifying the white working class against the middle and upper class. Oh, can't have that. What happens 6 weeks later?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be honest with you about this.
He gets gunned down in the fucking street, sir. And that's what's going to happen.
I'm going to share with you a moment of clarity.
Go on.
Not that you're going to be clarified. Well, you might be.
Yeah, man.
If what you're saying is true, I will say it's been successfully scrubbed from the story. I've never heard about what you're talking about.
It completely has, because you don't get taught this. You get taught that Martin Luther King was assassinated, but no one focuses on what he was doing the 6 weeks leading up to that. Everyone assumes it was regarding race relations. It wasn't. It was not. He literally was going to white working class people and saying, "Hey, some of the issues you've got are kind of similar to the issues us black people have." That is literally what he's doing. I'm not making this up.
This is not taught to us.
Right.
So we have this. You are laying new information onto me.
I'm dropping some fucking truth bombs here. So.
I've never heard anything you're saying. I'm gonna have to look all this up.
All of this is true. I promise you, sir.
Well, I'm not doubting you. I'm just saying I'm gonna have to read about it. I want more information than just the anecdotal thing you just said. I want to
completely.
read.
Go and confirm this. Go and confirm this.
I'm
please
going to, well, not a confirmation. I just want to know more.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, that turns what you were kind of saying in a different light, right? Like, as far as my saying, why wouldn't there be? So I guess no one else had a go in that way.
Well, I think Kennedy was probably.
There's so, but then wait a second. Because you said, as soon as they would get, like, someone would try to uprise in a way, then they would shoot that down and all that good stuff, and that's what they did to him.
Yeah.
And if you're saying that he got assassinated because of that, then what bearing does that have? Like, you're saying that was also in a step of improving race relations? Because you brought up race relations currently, although I would
What he
argue
was
that
trying to
race
what
relations currently are not half bad.
I mean, if you're asking me, okay, here's the thing. So regarding identity politics and gender politics, for me, this is how I see it. Okay, so this is not me saying that like anyone who advocates for this is wrong, but this is my perspective. I think that breaking us down into individual minority groups doesn't address the core issue. The core issue is economic inequality. Okay, so
I agree.
the issues affecting any minority are essentially the same when it comes to economic deprivation. So
Hmm.
the issue has got nothing to do with your race, like per se.
This sounds exactly what Bernie Sanders was talking about back
Yeah,
in. But ain't good.
yeah,
Because he was basically saying that it's the upper 1% that's fucking us.
yeah.
We just got to get the income inequality figured out, and then everyone will be happy. Not he wasn't about to make the minorities happier or the majority happier. America, everyone will be happier.
Except the 1%,
Well, of course, but fuck
and
them for a second.
the 1% shout loudest.
But that's what I'm saying. So how in the world did this conversation? Because okay, it seems like what you're saying right there was the conversation I was having a few years ago,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden race got plucked right into it. Why?
Why
Pushed right
indeed?
into it. Just
Why indeed? Why gun someone
because
down?
now,
Why gun someone down in the street when it's far easier to have them all fighting amongst themselves? This now is the conspiracy theorist in me.
well, maybe, but I mean, something had to happen because the same people I was talking about, everyone who was on that side who would still make the same case against income inequality will not argue it in the regular way. They'll argue it in the racial way.
Yes,
They don't have to,
they don't. No.
and they do, and I don't know why they do. These are people who are arguing for a good thing
Yes.
in a way that's completely ineffective and counterproductive.
Yeah, and in a way that like makes other minority groups react to them.
So I don't know where that came from, but it just appeared out of nowhere.
Well, I mean,
Probably the media's
I mean,
fault.
to be
Bastards.
clear,
CNN probably did this.
to be clear, I don't think there's some puppet master on high pulling strings making this happen. I don't think.
No, I'm gonna blame CNN just for the record.
I mean, I just think that with increased interconnectivity, you are naturally going to get very
No,
rapid.
that's probably more likely. Probably
Yeah,
someone said, this isn't about you to some white guy, and then it blew up in this whole thing.
yeah,
That's probably what happened. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a few that definitely were like tangible attempts to kind of influence people en masse. Cambridge Analytica is a prime example of this. The Russian the Mueller investigation currently
Oh God.
is again another example of this.
But
Uh,
that was such a low end attempt, right? Like
I no,
these are
like let me
small
just be
little.
clear here. I completely agree with you, and yes, it is tiny, but my point is it does set the precedent for it happening.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Although the Russian the Internet Research Agency, I believe, is what they were called.
right,
They weren't, from everything I've seen, and I haven't seen everything, but posts went around with some of examples of their what they were saying,
yes.
and it just seemed to me like they were further spreading an already existing narrative, not creating a different one.
There is an element of truth to that. Another element of it is that they were accelerating a narrative or
Yeah, no.
catalyzing a narrative. And it's very difficult to know for sure which way it falls.
Which one it was, sure,
Yeah,
but
I agree
all
with
I'm
you.
saying is I didn't see them saying anything that I didn't also hear coming from other conservatives who I know were Americans. They were just kind of picking up on the best
Here's
points or the most
yeah.
controversial points and
Here's the
like
thing.
really driving that home.
Yeah, here's the thing. Driving it home. The question is, what impact does driving that narrative have?
I don't know, based on the reach they got, not a big reach.
Yeah.
They didn't reach a lot of people.
Mhm.
I'd never heard of any of the sites that were taken up. One of them had a good number of followers, but as far as the engagement go, the numbers themselves, which are available,
Yeah, no,
were
I
pretty
mean, in that
low
regards, I
in
completely agree
comparison
with
to
you. But do you know that? Are you familiar with the
how much help it
Cambridge
did. I mean,
Analytica
over there,
investigation?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, because sorry.
I'm familiar with hearing about it. I haven't looked into it. Over there, you blame a bus. Some people I've seen blame a bus
What
for
the
Brexit.
360 bus, the 360 million
Yeah,
bus? Right.
it's to me someone. You have to understand with how big my country is. If
Mm.
someone told me that that a sign on a bus impacted a national election, I'd laugh
Oh man, like
because it just wouldn't make any
no,
sense
I
on this
completely
scale.
agree with you, but like you've got to keep in mind, like pretty much every state in your country is bigger than the UK. So like,
Right. I'm just saying though, it just seems so absurd to me when it says that bus had such an impact, and I just kind of look at it and go, okay.
we are a
Like
small 60
it doesn't
million
relate here. Yeah,
people.
it just doesn't relate. It doesn't translate to me is all. It just doesn't. I understand that, but I guess if
Yeah, I mean,
everyone
if you
saw
want to,
that
yeah, but
those buses,
here's the interesting thing, though. Do you know? Is it? Oh, what's the name of the company that's been buying up? Oh, what do you call? Is it public access television? It's your local news network.
oh, I know what you're saying. You're talking about that clip that went around was with the same people saying the same things over and over again, the local news channels
Yes, yeah, and that's because they're all owned by a particular. Is it
by the
Time
same company,
Warner?
right? I don't know, it's not, but I
No, it's
forget what
not. No.
company it is. But that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
The little TV stations are owned by somebody. But I get the point they're making in those videos is that people were more likely to trust their local TV news because they usually don't spin shit for you.
Yes.
Usually.
Usually, yeah. Or they're cashing in on the trust that you have for local news because you believe that they won't
Right,
spin.
by
Yeah.
kind of putting out this blanket weird statement to,
Yeah.
and it's not like it's an endorsement on one or another. It's just kind of like an ambiguous kind of, we want to remind you here that this, that, and the third, but it kind of does drive home a different point. And it is all run by the same company. But like I said, there are other media conglomerates that own a lot of other different outlets too. It's not an uncommon thing. Everyone's trying to push their own narrative.
No, I agree, but much like with internet service providers, do not see the issue that arises.
Today, not, I mean, because like the local news is not that. I mean, I don't know who's watching it. Probably mostly older people. Most people today consume their news. I remember a famous clip when Bill O'Reilly was still on Fox, and
Yeah.
one of his guys came out with statistics and told him that however many percentage of people age some odd to, the younger demographics get their news from Facebook and this, that, and the third, and how perturbed he looked that they weren't getting it from a professional like him to really spin it the right way.
Yeah.
People, most of the younger people, at least, and I'm 40 years old, and I don't get my news from TV, and even people older than me don't. I mean, it's kind of phased out in a way. I kind
No,
of laughed
I,
when I saw that clip in a way because it's silly, and I can see it. I used to watch local news when I lived in Chicago when I was very young. My parents watched it. My
mm,
mom watched it. My grandmother watched it. They'd sit down every night and watch, a national maybe, and then they'd watch the local coverage.
yeah.
And they were very trustworthy people. I can remember them by face if you brought up their old pictures, or if I did. Um, it's just not the same anymore. Those are people from, my grandmother was born in 1918. My mother was born in 1943. These are just, it's a whole different generation.
Yeah, no, I
Local news
understand
isn't
where you're
really a
coming
thing
from.
much anymore.
Yeah.
What I'm
Yeah,
saying is that tactic they're using is largely ineffective.
no, okay. The reason I bring it up is because that's a tactic that has been spotted.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I agree with you.
Here's the next question.
I think
The
that the
th-
Koch brothers own that shit.
Say again?
Koch brothers. I think the Koch brothers might own that conglomerate. I'm not sure.
Oh,
I think that tied. I was
oh,
some big
fantastic! The
money
guys that
conglomerate.
brought you Praga U.
They might own that one. I'm not
They
100%
actually
sure. I
do.
think they were
Sorry,
at least.
They actually do.
Do they really?
Yes.
So Dennis Prager doesn't own that?
Oh no.
No, I had no idea
He
about
got
that.
financial backing from the Koch brothers. You can check this
Hmm.
out. Like I go like.
Well, a lot of people get financial backing for that. Also happens with a lot of other people too.
Yeah, but my
You know,
question is this: why do you think the Koch brothers financed that?
because it shares their viewpoint, same as same as why I could say
Yeah,
that other guy finances.
Praga U
There's a
though. Okay,
viral video that went around
so
of some
no, let me.
back during the Kavanaugh hearings
Yeah.
where some woman was crying at Senator Jeff Blake in an elevator, and she worked for an organization that was funded by George Soros.
Yes. No, I completely agree with you. But my point here is, so the Koch brothers have own Praga U, and they have financed that because it agrees with their worldview, and they have pushed talking
Hmm.
points on local television that again fits
Correct.
with their worldview.
I'm
My question
pretty
is,
sure that's them.
yeah, my question is, what else do they own? What else? Where else are they pushing this? Do they own YouTube personalities?
I don't know.
Is Sargon of Akkad on their payroll? Now,
I haven't the slightest
you're
idea.
right. This isn't me saying that they do or that he is, but my point here is that it sets the precedent for what they are doing.
They could be. I mean,
Yeah. So
I'd have a price.
you're talking about like why is the transgender framework? Why doesn't it come from like the intersex perspective and then moving on to gender? And how, like, why is it these extreme talking points that we hear? Well, short answer, like, for me, the short answer is because that doesn't get the clicks and the likes and the upvotes.
Right.
But on top of that, it's easier to play identity politics against other people playing identity politics than it is to gun down Martin Luther King.
Nowadays, anyway.
Yeah.
Especially with how everyone has a video camera with them at all times.
Yeah, and it's easier, and we talked about this earlier, not just on the earlier in this recording, but also like earlier before we started recording, because we wanted to kind of like get agreed upon framework that there is a lot. Oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Talking about identity politics.
The long answer and the short answer to why the narratives aren't pushed from the intersex perspective.
Yeah. Oh, come on.
The short answer was for clicks.
Yeah, the long answer is that it's far easier to play disenfranchised groups against one another and have them blaming each other
than to shoot someone down and then you.
Yeah, than to let them kind of unify. Yeah, yeah. And so the game has changed. The game has changed. It's, we've got to talk about, like, is Antifa right to be doing what it's doing? Are they the real fascists? This is all a distraction. None of this matters.
I mean,
none of this matters.
I don't use that terminology, but yeah.
Yeah. What are the other fucking talking points? Like, there are only two genders. These fucking little punchlines. Facts don't care about your feelings. Again, these little fucking punchlines. I
like that one, though.
Yeah. These little fucking sound bites that you can just spit out and don't really have to think about. It gets clicks.
You're trying to ruin the fun.
No, because the fun here, unfortunately, is the game that is being
It's a big
peddled.
Distraction, yeah.
Yeah. In reality, we're in a mass extinction event. The planet is fucking dying.
But in reality, well, are we though in a mass extinction event? Really? We'll get into that for just a second. But
yeah.
Final touch on this one is that in reality, we don't have any control over what those upper 1% people are going to do anyway.
Don't we?
As you said, we can't rise up. I mean, I guess we could go off the grid, but not likely. So why not be entertained as we go down?
And that is exactly what they want you to do, sir.
And I bought in, yeah. I told you they got me already. Are you talking about the 10-year, 12-year thing? Is that what you meant by that?
That doesn't ring a bell. What are you talking about there?
All right. Oh, that woman over here said that when she was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
AOC, yeah.
And she was talking about how she said we got 10 or 12 years. I'll look it up.
No, that time has passed.
Yeah, that's what I thought already.
And
then here she was saying we got like 12 years. The world is going to end in 12 years if we don't do something.
No, sorry. Let me just be clear. It's not that the world is going to end. It's that
the world's not going to end if we do anything or nothing. If we keep going hard,
life as we know it is going to completely fucking be turned on its head.
But in 12 years,
that's going to happen even if we do everything that's possible. I'll have to explain.
First of all, that's what I thought from a long time ago. No, I've already was under that assumption from a long time ago. I was already given the news years ago that climate change thing had begun.
The question is how hard.
If we did something.
Yeah, the question is how hard do we want to be punched in the gut?
Right, but in 12 years, is that the new models? I haven't seen anything that's just in 12 years.
No, okay,
time.
So
most things are pretty far out in 80, 90 years, 100 years.
No,
that I've seen.
No, unfortunately, this is to do with people getting hung up on specific climate models. So, let me see if I can find you an example. What you want to be looking at is level of permafrost defrosting. Permafrost melting stats. So here's why this is a problem. Permafrost has a very high concentration of methane that has been locked up in it for a long time.
Yeah, I saw a
Uh,
documentary about that.
yeah, so
Keep going.
unfortunately, a lot of the problems that occur. So 5 years ago, you started seeing a lot of news stories in Alaska and Canada, like quite far up north, like in the Tiger Forest area, which was looking at the fact that all these buildings that have been constructed on this kind of concrete hard permafrost were sinking because the permafrost was defrosting. So you started seeing that about 7 years ago. Sorry, about 10 years ago. Now the problem is that as this permafrost melts, it releases this methane. So the gradual increase in temperature that in global temperature averages that we've been seeing is about to take a massive spike. The 12 years is probably the cycle in which that happens. Does that make sense? So in 12 years' time, we are going to see the consequences of that methane bleed off. However, it's not saying in 12 years we can do something about it. It is going to happen.
Well, she was kind of saying that, but even if she wasn't saying that, she was still saying that, or you're telling me that I'm going to see something in 12 years. What am I going to see? Is that known yet?
Well, what have you seen in the last 10 years?
Mm, I was in Chicago. I saw a lot of snow.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
Were they record-setting cold periods?
Uh,
They
some of them were
were.
pretty close. I think there was one, but not. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Chicago is pretty damn cold.
That's really not the point of
But I
that.
mean, what's gonna? But I mean, what's? I'm not. I guess I'm asking you what more the effect is that we're gonna see rather than is it just? Is that what you're telling me? It's gonna get colder?
Sorry, hang on. Let me just check something here. Um, so in the UK, I'll frame it this way. So in the UK, pre 2000, pre year 2000, we had one period in since records began, which was the record-setting temperature,
Period.
average temperature for the UK. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
and that's in terms of heat, not cold. So that was the hottest day on record. And I think it was like in '76 or something. It's not important, but my point is, in one century there was one record-setting event. That's it. The and that wasn't beaten for like 30, 40 years. And in the last 20 years, 10 of those years have been record-setting temperature years. And in geological terms, in anthropogenic terms of in geological terms, that's a blink of an eye. That's insane. That is
But
dramatic
what's the
climate
long term
shift.
impact projected to be for all this though? Tell me what's going to happen? Give me something I can
You're going to see, okay,
visualize.
so you're going to see unreliable water supply across the world. You're going to see a huge shift in biodiversity as regions get hotter. You're going to see huge quantities of soil erosion as certain regions that were essentially just frozen tundra defrost. You're going to see dust bowls. You're going to see incredibly powerful tornadoes and typhoons. You're going to see huge disruptions to food supply and probably even logistics in general. You're going to see very large displacement of peoples, particularly the first places that you're really going to see hit is like the Oceania continent. So as sea levels continue to rise, you're going to see certain countries essentially just wiped out because the islands that they were on have sunk. And those people have to go somewhere. Um,
Right.
so you're going to see a lot of unpleasantness in Asia, if it even gets reported globally. It's probably going on right now, in fact. You're going to see loss of like species diversity. If we're lucky, we don't lose the bees. And if we're really lucky, within that climate, we don't get the emergence of a superbug that causes a global pandemic. hopefully, air travel has been heavily restricted by that point.
Well, so far, not so good. That
Yeah,
was brought up.
yeah. But like I said, I think in the real kind of extremes of it. Like I said, it's kind of already too late to prevent an awful lot of this. We're stuck in this. Well, I say we're stuck in this. We're in a period of huge change, climate speaking, in terms of climate. Hence why in the last 20 years, 10 of those years have been record-setting years. That's the evidence. That's the indicator that, oh shit, something weird's going on here, right? Because you've got to look at it in kind of global terms. Like, that is unheard of. Climate tends to be stable, or at least our understanding of climate up until this point. So, concentration of carbon dioxide in the air is documented as increasing. It's a greenhouse gas. Methane in the atmosphere has gone down, is documented as increasing, generally because of the meat industry. The thing that's going to overtake that is going to be the permafrost, defrosting. It currently is overtaking it, in fact, because
definitely a new name for that stuff.
What stuff?
Permafrost. It's got a bad name.
It's not going to be permafrost soon. It's going to be swampland.
Perma sounds like it should be more permanent.
Yes.
Got to rename that stuff.
That's because it used to be permanent. The climate has changed to the point where it is no longer permanent.
That needs a new name.
So given that is now ceasing to be permanent frost, do you not think the climate is changing?
Sure, I never said it wasn't. I just wanted to know when I hear the quote that we're gonna, because like I said, every model I seen was all projecting far out into the future where I'll be way dead, and there was one person who's saying we're gonna see something in 12 years, and I wanted to know what.
So we've hit the tipping point for, I think, 2 degrees of warming, and that's the prediction. Okay, the prediction is to do with so there are certain things that are this is. How familiar with climate science and the models that you're working with, that they're working with, are you? I'm not I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but essentially it boils down to this. It is episodic in the sense that they start out with an initial theory and then they create a model that they can simulate on a computer. As processing power has got exponentially cheaper, the models have been able to take on new levels of sophistication. The other thing that they've been able to do is incorporate other phenomena that up until that point they hadn't been able to factor in. So, for example, it was really difficult to calculate the coefficient of clouds in climate models, because while cloud cover stops thermal energy from being acts as an insulator for thermal energy coming up trying to escape the atmosphere, it also reduces the amount of solar energy that comes in. And it was really difficult to work out what the coefficient value for basically the thermal insulating effect of cloud was. And it's only until relatively recently, due to using
I remember hearing about that recently.
Right. So that means that we can now update the level of reliability, let's say, of that particular value that we assign to the model. So with a more accurate coefficient, you can work out slightly better. You can work out new and improved models. It's always a refining process. It's never, this is the reality. It's well, now we've worked this out. And, we were only really kind of able to assess until relatively recently, just how much methane potentially is going to be released from newly defrosted permafrost. So that you've then got to factor that into your model, and then there's a level of unpredictability there as well, because you're going to have these huge geographic changes to locations as they go from permafrost tundra to what's the term, deciduous forests, where just the dynamics of it all change. Then what happens when you've got methane saturated soil dumping huge quantities of methane into the system?
But we're still not even saying that this stuff can be fixed, are they? They're saying that it's still going on no matter what we do?
like, so if we were to cut all carbon emissions
Like
today,
down to zero. Yeah,
yeah,
that was the
we
plan.
would still experience 3 degrees of warming on the current model. We'd hit,
And without,
well, without, like, we don't know. Oh, well, I say we don't know.
I
It'll be worse.
really don't think it's going to get zero. I don't even think it's going to get close to zero.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Well, so I mean, people should be figuring out a plan then.
Yeah, and Extinction Rebellion keeps saying this, but they get labelled as a bunch of, dole-claiming, work-shy middle-class louts.
Well,
Here we are.
are they not acting? Because I think they're asking for the 0% stuff, though. I
Yeah.
mean, work out a plan for what we do after that when it doesn't happen.
That's being done. Well, I say it's being
Oh.
done. It's not. So for example, I think we talked about this when we did the PDC podcast with James. You live in Florida, if I remember rightly.
Hmm.
In Florida, I forget where, but it's one of the coastal cities, like famous coastal cities. Trump owns a resort there. That city is currently experiencing an issue with rising sea levels, so they're having to raise all the height of all the streets there. That's them dealing with climate change, the consequence of climate change.
Oh, well, there you go. A lot of places around here have drainage set up, and actually everything's kind of on a curve,
Yeah,
on a bit of a hill,
yeah,
sloped in a
I
way,
get you. Yeah,
so that water can run off into the streets and then into these reservoirs. Like I saw one, there's one right down the street from my house that says, "Don't throw anything in here, because this goes out to the local river and lake or whatever."
yeah, yeah. Or
Rather than just
like so,
rather than just a sewer.
yeah. So I'd argue that and like those are like storm defenses and flood defenses, aren't they?
Right. Hmm.
And I would argue that all of that is a response to climate change. Like that city is having to raise its street level because of climate change.
Yeah, that wasn't really a thing. I wasn't in a coastal city until very recently, so I have no idea. I just see all these things, and I don't know what they're for.
Wow.
I didn't. I think I saw the street raising thing though
Yeah.
in the news when it came out. Uh, that's not really going to solve the other problems you were talking about, though.
No, it's a
As
response.
as
Sorry.
places become unlivable and all that good stuff, you know.
Yeah. No. I could like yes. Short answer. Like yes, you're absolutely correct. But like those are responses to climate change. Is my point.
Not good enough.
They
We
are.
need a
Yeah,
bigger
I
plan.
completely agree with you. But like, welcome to everyone pretending it's not happening. Welcome to having a political party in power in the US where 50% of its senators believe that if man-made climate change is real, ultimately it doesn't matter because Jesus Christ is coming.
Well, that's just nonsense. I'm talking about pragmatic stuff, not
Yeah, I
nonsense.
agree, but we don't live in a pragmatic world where pragmatism operates politically. That's not the world we live in. We're in the age of spin, so.
Exactly, but that's my point though. Since we're not going to do anything, right?
Hmm.
We have to plan for the what if you're wrong thing. That's all part of the God thing. That's Pascal's wager. You have to plan for what if you're wrong. And they're not planning it for if they're wrong.
I agree, which is why I'm saying to you that literally the best possible outcome is where everyone pursues growing their own food,
I texted that dude. I don't know
being
what's happening.
being very clear in what pursuing their own energy independence, their own water independence. Like learn how to purify water, learn how to grow food, learn how to supply your own energy needs. You figure that out, you'll probably write it out.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I do watch these videos on YouTube where these guys will go out, they're out somewhere in the forest, and they'll like dig out a trench and make a house and swimming pools and all kind of cool
Yeah.
shit. But I don't think anyone's going to live in that. There's no electricity. I can't plug in my laptop. None of that's going to work for me.
Yeah, but I can
You
guarantee
got me.
you.
I'm trapped.
I can guarantee you there is plenty of scrap available out there. You could teach yourself electronics by grabbing by going to your local junkyard and buying all the cheap electronics there.
Huh? Yeah.
That'll serve you. That'll
No
serve.
good? Uh-oh. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Because I'm about to travel away from my Wi-Fi, and it
Ah,
might drop. I apologize.
that's okay, sir.
Back.
Yeah, like
Abs-
the audio is getting a little intermittent, but I think it's just switching over to your service provider as opposed to the Wi-Fi. Alternatively, it may have cut out. Oh no, it's just you and me, listener. So now that John's gone, I'm gonna drop some truth bombs. I'm not gonna drop some truth bombs. I've spoken my truth already. But I think this is probably a good place to cut. If you're still with us, well done. I'm impressed. I hope this has been interesting to you. I'm actually just going to try and redial John, so apologies for the dial tone. Hello, sir.
I told you I was gonna, because when it switches from my Wi-Fi to my from my home signal to my when I'm outside of the house, it
So,
drops.
yeah.
I had to leave the house.
It's okay.
But anyway,
do you want to call it an end or?
we can if you want to. I was still having fun. Got to take the kid to work and got to pick up a package.
Oh, boss, if you're still having fun, let's crack on.
Yeah. I mean, I was just saying they kind of bought me before we hung up. They bought me. I'm bought and sold. I couldn't go off the grid. It's too hard.
Why'd you say that?
So I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Well, why do I say that? I couldn't do that. I couldn't live with no modern luxury. Wouldn't work out for me.
Well, okay, so
I feel bad for those people on that island, the Cetanese or whatever how you call them,
I don't know.
the ones that no one can go to, the one that India owns it. I feel bad for those
Oh,
people.
those guys. Yeah. Why do you feel bad?
Because they've never had a hot meal. They don't know how to fire.
Oh, bullshit. They totally have fire.
No, all the reports I've read said they don't have fire.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
they've never had a hot meal. I feel bad for them.
Maybe we're missing out. Do you ever think about
No, I don't.
that?
I mean, I get it. They have everything they need, and they that's why they're fiercely protective of their territory there, and they're not bothered by all the inane bullshit we're bothered by. And they don't have to think about all the stupid things like how can I afford my mortgage and I'm going to lose my car and everything else.
Yeah, and is it okay for this person
about.
to use the bathroom? Oh, God.
Right,
Yeah.
all that other ridiculous nonsense. I get it. They don't have to worry about all of that. No, I understand. Their life is a lot more simple and probably a lot more contented than ours is. But they can't log on and see videos of people getting hit in the nuts. I can. I win.
Yeah, but on top of that, I would argue that they're in a far better position right now to ride out the consequences of global climate change than you are.
Because they're much more suited to adapting to their
Yeah,
environment.
because they can live off the land. They know what they're doing.
When their environment changes, they'll adapt and move forward. I'll freak. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
No,
I was
I
gonna
understand
like,
you're
okay,
not
yeah,
wrong.
okay. So you can't necessarily go off grid for power. All right. Can you secure your own fresh water supply?
Does the rain count? I'm in a place where it rains a lot.
The rain absolutely counts. If you can work out how
That's
to
the
filter
best
that
I
shit,
could do. It
maintain
rains
that
all the
shit,
time here.
then yeah, absolutely. Like get to the point where you don't need water utilities. You're not reliant on water utilities. There's the step right there. You got any? You got
It's not gonna help
windows?
the dishwasher. The dishwasher is not going to run on my saved rainwater.
Have you treated the rainwater?
Have I what?
Have you treated the rainwater?
I haven't collected it at all. We're just hypothetically talking about now.
Yeah,
I
you
guess if
can totally switch a dishwasher over to it. It's got its own pump. You can, as long as it's got a
Yeah, I
tank of water
suppose I
that's pumped
could.
from. Yeah.
Well, I suppose I could. It just sounds like we use an awful lot of water, and it's more difficult when I have to collect it myself. I'm talking about barrels and all kind of
Yeah.
reservoirs that I have to kind of dig in somewhere and do all that
Yeah.
nonsense. Whereas now they run these pipes right to the house, and they just flow the water in. Turn on the faucet, just comes
Yeah.
flowing out.
But what are you gonna do when no water comes out the faucet?
Go to the store, and then they got them in bottles and jugs.
And what happens when that doesn't? also is not there.
I will complain. Oh, I'll buy some soda first, and then I will complain.
You'll write a very angry letter to someone.
Yeah, get the fucking water working. What's wrong with you? Of course,
Yeah,
that happened in California for a while too. There was that shortage they had going on when it got real dry. I'm where it rains a lot.
yeah. I mean, I was
here.
thinking of Flint, Michigan, but yeah, sure.
Well, Flint, Michigan at least got bottled water.
Sure.
Listen, that was the very specific problem that fucked up for no good reason.
Oh no, the
In
point.
that,
Yeah, go on.
well, no, I'm just saying that they were using a certain reservoir and they'd been using it forever and ever, and they switched to a different one. And I forget why they did, but it didn't save them any money. And the corrosives in that particular reservoir was what ate away at the pipes that they were using, which would not have happened if they wouldn't have made the switch. I forget why they did it, but it was just really stupid. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt that it was very stupid, but the point I'm
That
getting-
wasn't related to climate change.
No, I
thinking
completely agree with you, but my point there is look at the destabilizing effect of what happens when a utility that you expect to always work suddenly stops working and no one knows what to do. That's the only reason I bring it up.
Yeah, no, you're right. It definitely made the news too,
Yeah.
but not for very long. There was a show that was on the same network as The Daily Show that used to cover it once or twice a week. He vowed, he says, I'm not going to let this just be forgotten. I'm going to keep bringing this up because what we do here is we see something, we hear something, and then we get all outraged about it, and then next week something else happens, and we totally forget about the last thing that we were pissed off about.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm going to keep bringing it up every fucking week until something's done about it. And he got canceled. Nothing was done.
Holy shit. Nah.
He didn't
Was
get
that,
canceled for that. He got canceled just because I guess they said no one was watching, although I watched.
was that Trevor Noah?
No, Trevor Noah still got his job. This
Right.
was, damn, what was his name? Oh, Larry Wilmore.
Oh, I don't know him.
Yeah, he had a show, The Late Show with Larry Wilmore, and it was actually
Oh,
the
what's
better
that?
of the
What's
shows.
that? He focuses on the real issues and the real problems
Well, that's
affecting,
what I was about to.
and affecting
that's what I was
Americans,
about to
and
get
he
into.
fucking gets shit canned? Oh, color me surprised.
Well,
sir.
that's what I was about to tell you too. Is that beyond that point, he actually had the better of the political shows, which was still comedy. Because while he did his bits, they devoted like the last maybe 10 minutes of the show to just this little roundtable discussion, and they didn't really focus on the bullshit. They actually kind of got down to real issues, and I thought it was so interesting
Yeah.
that someone was finally talking about just real stuff. And yeah, he didn't last long.
Yeah, and then they fucking cancel him. They don't gun him down in the street. They just deplatform him.
Yeah, he doesn't get his platform
And they
anymore.
they deplatform in a way that no other YouTube content providers talk about his deplatforming.
Right, because he just didn't get. They claimed he didn't resonate, didn't get the ratings, and so he was canceled.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Oh, is like
That's
Fuck.
the not. Yeah, I wouldn't have had the same free speech. That's the platforming debate that I would have, as if they demonetized a YouTuber for saying the wrong thing. To me,
yeah,
it would
because
look completely
because
different.
the whole demonetizing YouTube videos is just a fucking distraction. Like it doesn't fucking matter.
Well, it doesn't, and it does. I mean, it kind of invokes a self-censorship in a way. When you get demonetized for saying certain things, you kind of then, people know about it because people talk about it, and so they don't want to talk about that subject. It's the same thing. Like if you're a guy who talks about Israel, for example, and they wait, that's too polarizing an issue. We're not going to put sponsors
Yeah.
on this video. Then you won't cover that issue anymore because it's too controversial for you.
No.
And then
yeah.
that kind of drives the narratives that way.
Yeah. No, I do. I mean, I agree with you.
But it's the same thing when that guy gets canceled, because in reality, the news became all fucked up when it became about profit. When the news wasn't about how much money you made, real news got shared.
Yeah.
Even the TV shows are sensationalized news now, not just clicks.
Yeah, man. Look, I don't know if they have this in the
That's-
States, but this is true of the BBC. They'll start doing like one of the things in like because we have like a 24-hour news channel for the BBC. If like because they can't fill like 24/7 with content, They've started doing this thing where it's like they'll talk about a specific issue and then they'll talk about tweets and text messages that they've been sent by the general public.
Right.
Who
Everyone
gives
does
a
that.
fuck?
Yeah, like
I don't give a shit.
it's the same principle. It's the same principle as a sports guy who will talk. I know they'll talk about athletes who will respond to every guy on Twitter who might make a bad comment about. It's like, why do you care? Why do I care what Lisa76 on Twitter had to say about this issue?
Yeah.
Why is she driving the narrative of this on television?
Yeah.
Like, what? It doesn't make any sense.
What
But that's what happens.
what I
all
need
over.
from you are hard facts, hard points. I don't want to talk about opinion. If a politician says something that's wrong, I want you to tell me that it's wrong. I don't need all of this. We have to have both sides of the argument represented. I want the argument. I want reality. Everything else can fuck off.
Well, back in the day when I was very, very young, I remember watching the news. I said so with my grandmother and my mother, and the guy on the TV, he didn't tell them how to think. When the news was over, they turned off the TV and they discussed how they felt about it.
Yeah.
That's different than what happens today.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
guy on the news tells you how to feel about it now.
Yeah.
And oh, this is terrible. And can you believe that such a thing was done? And oh no, and it drives it. That's what it is.
Yeah. No, completely. Don't disagree with anything that you're saying here, but like.
There's no fix to that, though. That's why people say journalism is dead.
Yeah, there is no fix to that because welcome to late-stage capitalism.
You keep saying that.
Yeah, because it is that. That is the consequence.
Yeah. Because you're right. I can't disagree with
Don't
that.
get me wrong,
Clicks
like-
are what's driving everything.
Don't get me wrong,
The
this
ad
is-
revenue is what's driving it all.
Yeah, no, completely. And don't get me wrong. This isn't me saying like, oh, capitalism is everything that's wrong with the world. Like, fuck that. Like, capitalism has fixed a lot of fucking shit in the world. Let's be clear here.
Right.
But
Yeah, I like
unfortunately,
that more. That sounds better.
yeah, it, like, absolutely has. Unfortunately, it is not the magic bullet that fixes everything. And I'm sick and tired of it being represented as, like, it's either that or full-blown communism. Like, fuck off. Like,
I mean, I agree with you there. It's not one. It doesn't have to be one or the other of those two things. I mean,
and I would also argue, like, you know, an awful lot of it, it's kind of like, you know, we were talking about earlier with regards to climate change. Like, all of this is just me kind of like angrily being annoyed at this, like from a position of absolutely no power. I have absolutely no. I can't affect my government. I can't affect. I can't affect my culture, my society, or anything like that in any tangible way. This is just me purely kind of observing it and watching the ride.
yeah. I mean, I kind of feel that way too. There's nothing like. It's the most frustrating thing in the world when you want to stand. Like the comment I made earlier about when are the adults going to stand up and make some sense in the world, and no one does it. And I want to do it, but no one's going to listen to me. So I can just sit here and watch.
Yeah. So like
It's incredibly frustrating.
yeah, and this is like I mean, personally I consider myself a bit of primarily I'm an anarchist. If I had a political philosophy, it's that I'm an anarchist in the political sense. As such, an awful lot of socialist concepts work pretty well with my philosophy.
Really?
Oh God, yeah.
How does government control work with anarchy?
So anarchy would be voluntary association in this sense. So the way government can regulate as in set standards, but when it comes to how a business operates with regards to like, you know, which like R&D, capital investments, new equipment, automation, all of these things, that's down to decisions made by every worker within that company.
Huh.
So Walmart, for example, or like Amazon, like if you gave every single employee of Amazon an equal stake in Amazon,
But how is that anarchy?
because
Anarchy just says no rules to me.
no, that is not what anarchy is. Oh my God. That's not what anarchy means.
Well, I'm way off the base there.
Anarchy, like, unfortunately, like, that's, so, like, anarchy in political philosophy terms, I'm actually just going to Google this for you. If I remember rightly, it's to do with voluntary, and I really cannot spell, anarchy. So PDC is just going to get a view of the severity of my dyslexia there. Anarchy definition. So anarchy refers to a society, entity, group of people, or a single person that rejects hierarchy. The word originally meant leaderlessness. As a political philosophy, it advocates stateless societies based on voluntary associations. Okay, so that's essentially a like really complicated way of saying, like, I'm gonna do this thing if I want to do this thing. If I don't want to do this thing, I'm not gonna do it.
But wait.
Yeah.
But stateless society.
Mm-hmm.
So then, who's doing all the regulations if you're not in a state?
Quite right.
Do you understand the kind of like confusion I got there?
No, I do, and this is the fault at my end, to be clear. So I'm starting to think that maybe I'm not an anarchist. Oh God.
No, I've messed you up now. I've changed your world.
No, you really have.
I apologize.
No, it's not your fault. I'm trying to think of
Sounds more like. Are you familiar with the show South Park? It kind of sounds like their definition of what the hippies were talking about. Just, a guy who does things and you live in your own little commune kind of a thing.
It does, and that is the dream. Nah. So,
although I don't know how that would work. It's such a radical idea when you say that. Imagine if every worker got a stake in that company. That is an idea so foreign to me, I cannot even visualize it. What that would look like in practice.
So, like, what I was describing there is what in the UK we call a cooperative. Cooperatives is essentially that. And that's kind of like that, I suppose, is the anarchist in me, and that's how I envisage corporate structuring. I think that corporate structuring is only acceptable in a cooperative model.
I mean, it makes sense, I guess, what you're saying. I just, like I said, it sounds like a novel idea, but I don't see how it would work if every employee had a stake in that company. People leave their jobs too often. And then still, I don't know, like every guy bagging groceries would be just as powerful as the top guy. That doesn't make a lot of, like, in my head. And I've been raised under this system, so it's supposed to make sense. So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because your concern is that there's more baggage handlers than there is executives, right? Yeah. So
there's more of a lot of things.
Yeah, so that requires you to restructure your enterprise, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I don't know what that would look. So I said I don't know what that would look like in practice.
Germany has in Germany they have a really interesting business practice, which is that I say this isn't a universal thing, but I know it's true of an awful lot of companies in Germany. So for every board executive, they have a union rep. If you have like major shareholders in a company, for every member of the board of executives, you have to have an equal number of union representatives. And that's how they do it, rather than like everyone having an equal stake. And they vote on
that just seems so hard.
On specific issues regarding like directions for a company, and the union reps have an equal number of votes to the board of executives, which prevents things like short selling, like the pension fund and shit like that, or that push.
How do they avoid ties?
Yeah. How do they avoid ties?
What if the vote's a tie? Yeah.
Then
Usually they have an equal number of representatives than
yeah.
the
How do
CEOs
they?
and the.
Well, if there is a tie, then they go back to the issue and vote again later.
Hmm.
But my point
It
is,
seems like
hmm?
I'm just saying it seems like the business guys will always vote for their favor, and the other guys will always vote for the favor of their representatives. Anyway, the point is, I guess that at least gives me an idea of how it would work in practice.
Sure, and I
You
don't,
just have
I
a
don't really,
representative.
I
So
don't
it's
really
kind of
have
like
a
an
problem
electoral
with
college
that.
voting system.
My point is, like, I don't think under that environment you get Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, no. And he's definitely not acting fairly.
Or Elon Musk, for example.
They crapped on him lately. Is he still good?
I fucking hate Elon Musk. Don't talk to me about Elon Musk.
All right. I don't know. I don't know anything about that guy.
I dislike him on many levels.
He just kind of seems like weird to me.
Mm.
Like one of these Fruit Loop. He kind of comes off like those, like the caricature they wanted Doc Brown to be in the Back to the Future. He was like the crazy scientist with the wild ideas kind of a guy.
Yeah,
That's kinda like
the problem there is the crazy side that Doc Brown actually came up with the time machine. Elon Musk is selling you the idea of the time machine without having any.
Well, right,
intention
but
of
I'm
it.
just saying that's kind of what he comes across as to me. Is just kind of like a crazy scientist who's spouting all this bullcrap that's never going to come to fruition. That's how I kind of see him.
I'd say that's accurate.
Oh, okay, well then I'm right. I really don't know much about him.
Yeah, and that's why I fucking hate him. Like there was a fucking cult of people surrounding him, which fucking pisses me off. He's not going to, SpaceX is not going to revolutionize the rocket industry. Hyperloop is not going to revolutionize transportation. Like, it just isn't.
And he's not going to colonize Mars either.
Yeah, he's not going to colonize Mars. He's not going to revolutionize the transport industry with his lithium batteries.
No, he's not going to do any of that stuff, but he likes to talk about it.
Absolutely.
I mean,
and he gets a hell of a lot of investment because he talks about it, the way that he talks about it. But he is selling an idea. He is not selling reality. He is selling an idea. And that is why I fucking hate Elon Musk.
That's true. He's not got a product in his hand that he's showing you. He's telling you what he could make if you gave him stuff.
It's like, oh, it's going to bring about like the end of like gasoline-driven vehicles. It's all going to go electric. No, you're not. Not with the current technology the way it is. Lithium batteries doesn't have nowhere near the energy density that required for this to work. It is nowhere near cost effective yet.
Not yet, no.
And the improvements that he's making, the improvements that Tesla are making in the industry are nowhere near enough. General Motors is close to releasing a vehicle that is better than Tesla, and that's electric.
Well, I don't think and none of his stuff has been cheap. So I don't know,
Yeah.
No one's going to switch to your stuff and be more money. That's the point. If you want someone to drive an electric car and switch off, you want me to get off my gas car, give me something that at least runs comparable price-wise. Like, if nothing else, at least comparable, not more money.
I completely agree with you.
But they're not doing that. They're putting it out real expensive at first. So I'm going to wait until the cheapies come out.
Yeah, which unfortunately isn't going to happen. And also, do you really want to rely on a resource that is from 3 geopolitically really unstable countries, much like oil? Are we spotting the problem here yet?
I gotta rely. Listen, I gotta rely on something. When I have to drive somewhere, I require a vehicle. I can't do it on my own. I don't fly. So I gotta get something.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna ride a bike, even though that's the most reliable.
Yeah.
Because that's just a chain. You fix that really easy if it breaks.
Yeah, I mean, there you're relying on your own power,
Right.
And also, I would argue in America that's quite difficult because suburbia exists. The fact that suburbia
it's hard to get
exists.
around. Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
I mean, I don't know what your living situation is. I don't know if you're in an apartment or it's like a house.
No, I got a house.
Yeah.
But no, I'm just saying. It's back to my other point. They got me. I need all these luxuries, man. They got me. I think and I'd actually argue they got most of us. I think we've been spoiled by a lot of this stuff, and it's too hard to give it up now.
Yeah. They've spoilt you to the point that you've become dependent on it. The con worked.
Exactly.
There we go. Welcome to late stage capitalism. Sorry. I'll stop.
Man, that should be the. You're gonna have to just. You know what? I think you should do that after on the title of the video, after a fireside chat. Blah blah blah. The title should be "Welcome to late stage capitalism."
Yeah, maybe.
Because that has been a consistent theme throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't consider myself an anti-capitalist, but
no, but everything we've touched on has in some way been influenced.
Yeah, no, completely.
Demonstrably so by this phenomenon you call late-stage capitalism.
Absolutely. Because as far as I'm concerned, that's exactly what it is.
A fun coincidence that just so happens that was able to be touched on in every subject, from gender to everything.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, precisely. For me, fucking quibbling over who gets to use the bathroom, that is a first world luxury to be fucking arguing over. I'm not sure if the person.
Yeah, you're not pissing in a hole, right?
Yeah, life is good if that's the biggest problem for a national debate, right?
No, there's no arguing with that.
Yeah, so
and we're not even talking about your bathroom at home, your private.
Yeah, no, we're talking about
the one you might
public
use
bathrooms, right?
on your family's outing once a month, maybe. That you might, maybe the slimmest chance in the world, you might be slightly inconvenienced for a couple of minutes of your day.
Yeah.
And not even inconvenience, really, just made to feel even the littlest of uncomfortableness for yourself. Ooh.
Yeah. So
isn't that just terrible?
Apparently.
Well, they try to frame it like, oh, predators are going to come in and the lone girls. There's so much wrong with that, because not a lot of people just send, I guess if the person's going in there by themselves and you let your very young child of 7, 8, whether we're talking about, just wander off by themselves, then maybe you got that.
Yeah, but
if you're
fuck
with
that.
them,
not being funny. I don't have kids, but if I'm out.
But even beyond that, assaulting someone in the bathroom is illegal.
Yeah, I know, right? And if anything, they've made assaulting people easier in banning it, right? Because here's what now happens. Before, it was just oh well, there's no legislation covering this, so I'm just gonna have to keep that as the locked door within me. I'm not gonna confront this person, okay? Whereas now, it's I don't believe that you are male, or I don't believe you are female, so now I am going to stop you from making use of the bathroom. If anything, it's incentivized assaulting people.
They had a big campaign for it down in Texas, I remember. That's where most of that stuff happened.
Texas,
I don't know if that's actually a problem.
Well known for its bathroom usage concerns.
I don't know if that's a big thing around the whole country. I don't think that's, but where it's at is where it gets highlighted.
Yeah.
I think in North Carolina they had a problem with it too, but they got rid of it because people bitched.
My geography.
But yeah, it's just ridiculous conversations to be had.
Is Carolina next to Texas?
No.
No. Okay. Right.
But it's still in the South. They're still all kind of lower end of the country.
I get you.
Texas is on the west, and Carolina is further east.
So Texas is the east coast side of it's the Atlantic
Texas
side.
Texas is on the west coast, right under California.
Sorry, west. Wait, what? No.
Texas
Damn.
is right.
Oh,
yeah,
of course it
Texas
is.
is on the.
No, of course it is. Sorry.
Well, not right under California. It's next to. It's not under. Well, it's different because it's a big, large stick. It's not. It's nearer to California than it is. It's kind of in the middle. Texas is in the middle, but it's on our southern border. Same with Mexico and Nevada. In California, it's a big place, man. But Carolinas are. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just curious.
Carolinas
how many
Carolinas
can UK fit in Texas?
The Carolinas are above me. So Florida, and then above Florida is Atlanta or Georgia, I should say. And then right next to Georgia is the Carolinas.
Okay,
so they're on my side of the South, whereas Texas is off on the other end, but they're still kind of in the middle because of how fucking big Texas is.
Yeah. Oh, that's.
But Texas is more north.
Oh my God,
New Mexico
that's creepy
and
as fuck. Sorry, I was just the predictive text when you're doing a search.
Yeah.
Literally, what I was typing in was how many times can the UK, and then the next thing that came up was fit in Texas. The
And how many
suggest.
times can it fit into Texas?
Let's have a look. 3.5 times, I think.
That's
Oh
pretty
no,
good.
the 2.8, but you know, zero point 0.7
Hey, that's still pretty
UK's.
good.
Yeah, Jesus fucking Christ.
We appreciate that you gifted this place to us.
Say that again.
I said we appreciate that you gifted this place to us. Well, not Texas. We took Texas,
Yeah,
but
I
the
was gonna
rest of
say,
it,
wasn't there
just
like
kind
the
of got that.
Alamo and shit?
Yeah, no. I mean, it was a contentious little while there, but we finally got it. It's all right.
Hmm.
Actually, they eventually seceded, if I'm not mistaken, from Mexico, and they wanted to join the union back when that was a thing. Well, it's still a thing, but I
Yeah.
mean, people don't join it anymore.
It's kind of set now. Although there's this matter of Hawaii, there's still that movement out there for their independence again. Although they wanted to join too, we didn't force them. It's a lot like your
Isn't there
EU
another
over
one
there.
like Venezuela?
Venezuela's not a. No, you're talking. I think you mean Puerto Rico.
I do mean Puerto Rico. Apologies.
You're talking about U.S. territory as opposed to actual states, though. We own a
Yes.
few territories that want to be. Yeah, they do. They've voted multiple times over a vast majority of their population to get statehood. We just don't want to give it to them.
Why
Yeah,
is?
and yet for I don't know why they're all citizens. Every last one of them.
Yeah, I find that really. Well, I find that really bizarre.
It's
It's
it
exactly the
is it's
same in
kind
the
of
UK.
bizarre.
It's literally the same in the UK.
It's kind of bizarre though. They're all citizens. Every one of them can pick up and come here right now and live free. And I'm not. I wouldn't say anything about they're absolutely legal to be here. They
Yeah.
just they're not a state. It's weird.
So,
It's
like,
a little weird.
does any of their tax revenue go to the federal government?
No, we are absolutely divorced from them in a federal sense in that way. We don't give them any money. They don't give us any money. They are their own government. But we have fucked them over a time or two with our capitalism stuffs.
What, where you've
Yeah.
just kind of outcompeted them and like they fucked over their economy?
Where we've moved over there, and we kind of set up our like. There's a big tourist to kind of like what we did with Cuba in a way when we kind of touristed them out of all their money back in the early stages, and then
Mm.
I think they had a go in Puerto Rico where they sold a lot of bonds to like kind of like what's that other country's problem? They just got in debt that way.
Oh,
What are those hedge funds and all that stuff? The
yeah,
hedge
yeah.
fund bonds and all that good stuff. Yeah, they got screwed over pretty good. That's why when all that shit happened over there, they couldn't rebuild. They're already in debt, and that's why Trump got shit for the comment when he said that they're foreign to us in a domestic sense. And there was like, oh, he's saying they're not. Whatever. What he's saying is none of our federal budget is ever allocated to Puerto Rico. So then doing so is weird for us because we have to find out where that money's going to come from.
Yeah, I feel like this is like the first talking point that was given to him in the brief regarding Puerto Rico in the White House,
Probably.
and that was just him regurgitating it
Probably,
badly.
but that's still what he meant. I mean, yeah, I mean, they gave him that nice line to say, and he said it. He probably didn't know a fuck thing about it, other than can I put a golf course there?
Yeah.
But that's not the point. The point is he still didn't just have the ability to say, let's funnel them some money. We don't have any channels to funnel them money. We don't work that
Yeah,
way
because
with
you
them.
don't have it
Even
on
though
a
they are a
you
territory.
don't have like the federal architecture to do that. Yeah.
Right, even though they are a territory of ours.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, they're a U.S. territory. We technically, I don't know if we own them or just like they're considered. Kind of like a few. We have a few. Like I said, we have a few territories that aren't still. I believe Guam is a U.S. territory.
I'm actually gonna check that. Like, be
It
interesting.
might be Guam.
How the hell do you spell Guam?
Guam.
Gee,
I
Oh.
think it's Guam that's a U.S. territory.
I'm just checking.
Puerto
Unincorporated and
Rico.
organized. Yeah, it is a U.S.
Yep.
territory. Yeah.
The U.S. Virgin Islands also.
Yeah. Damn.
So we have a few territories that are not states,
Mm.
and they're citizens, and yet they're not treated like a full citizen in a way, I guess, because they're off. Kind of like why we were pissed off. America, no representation except we're not taxing them.
But same thing, in a way.
Yeah,
They get a
no,
little mad. That's why they want to become a state,
taxation
because they
without
have
representation. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
they would be more. They would still feel more like their concerns were being talked about in our government if they actually had. We won't even let them come speak, like in our Congress and whatnot. Or they have to ask for permission, to raise a concern. We can tell them no.
Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of fighting in that for that. I've watched a few things on it. It's really not fair the way they get treated. But either way, yeah, we're not known for treating everyone great, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, who is?
Yeah. I wish we would do something about it, though. I don't. It's weird having territories and all. And some of these people, they need help over there. And then why don't we just make them states? I mean, they got to have some kind of, something we could want. I guess it's just not in our best interest. If it would make the country more money, we'd do that. I'm sure of it. I mean, if we could exploit it in a better way by absorbing them than we already exploit them now, we would do it.
Yeah, I don't think that's true, though.
Really? You think if we couldn't exploit them just a little harder, we wouldn't figure out a way to do it?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Come
Sorry,
on.
I misunderstood. I thought you meant
Yeah.
zero.
If we could squeeze them any harder, and we needed to make them a state to do so, we would make them a state to do so.
Oh God. Okay.
I think we would, because I don't understand why we hold these territories in this regard if we're not going to do anything with them. It doesn't make any sense to just hold these as territories.
Yeah, generally speaking, it's considered.
If you're not going to do anything with it, you're just going to say you operate on your own.
Yeah, but it's considered giving up territory is considered a hard fail.
Yeah, no, I know. They don't want to give up territory either. That's also a bad thing.
Which, I mean, you've raised the point.
That's the same reason. That's the same reason that they don't want you to Brexit. That's just they are doing something with you that's different. But that's the same reason they don't want to. Don't you think? Isn't there going to be a negative impact on the EU in general when you leave, or is it just going to be bad on you all?
Yeah, there'll be.
That's what I think. Aren't they going to miss out a little bit too?
Yeah, there will absolutely be an impact on the EU. I don't doubt that. But the question is it's a question of proportionality,
Right.
So
I wish I understood what the whole Brexit. That's my fault on that. Is I wasn't really I didn't follow Brexit until after the referendum. So I have nothing from before.
Yeah, look, man, that's completely understandable. Why the hell would you?
Yeah.
Literally, as far as I understand it, most people were just kind of when it came to if any American asked about Brexit leading up to the actual result announcement of the referendum, everyone would just be like, "Oh, don't worry, we're not that stupid." Oh, okay. Turns out. No,
I mean, I don't remember anything. I remember we got a British comedian over here, John Oliver, who covers some topics over there from time to time.
Yeah, I know John Oliver. Yeah.
And he covered Brexit a little bit. Not much. He covered the referendum they had. I believe was it in Ireland too? Was it to leave the UK? Did they have one of those, or that's some Scotland maybe had it? Someone had it.
Currently there is a discussion going on in Wales and Scotland regarding leaving the UK.
I remember though that there was a vote on it, wasn't it? For one of those places, because he covered it. Where they showed a commercial of this woman who was saying she couldn't make up her mind. I'm pretty sure she was a Scottish woman.
Oh, that will be the SNP, Scottish Nationalist Party. Which, by the way, this is if regarding discussions on political discourse, when a Scotsman tells you he's a nationalist, it has a very different meaning to when someone else says that they're a nationalist.
Oh, how convenient.
Yeah, no, because in Scotland it's no, I'm for an independent Scotland. It's not to do with we as a people, the Scottish people. It's not that kind of nationalism. I don't quite know how to explain it to you, because Scotland.
No, I get it. It's just not. I get it. It's just not fair.
Yeah. I completely. Well, I don't completely agree there with regarding to it's not fair because
I kind of do because we don't have it in America, right?
Yeah.
American is not a race of people like Scottish would be, right? Like a separate distinction of a white person.
Yeah, just
American
to be
is
clear though, there's quite, like, Scotland is actually surprisingly diverse.
right. But I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about like a Scottish person is typically like a white guy.
Yeah, okay.
They
Like,
might
yeah, I get where you're
they
coming from,
might
and
they
yes.
might immigrate more people, and they're Scottish too because now they're born there and I
Yeah,
get
yeah.
all that. But I mean,
Yeah, and
DNA wise and all that.
Scots genuinely don't give a shit, right?
And fine,
They're just
I don't give
like,
a shit
oh,
either.
they're just like, oh, you're black. Yeah, that's fine. Were you born in Scotland? You're Scottish.
There you go.
That's literally it.
And that's how the French do that same thing too. I remember when they won the World Cup, and I found out that France doesn't count any of that either. You're born in France, you're as French as the
Yeah,
next
you
French
are
guy.
French. Like, it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is. You are French. That's their identity. Yeah, that's how they. That's
Right.
yeah.
They don't even keep statistics on it because they could give a shit, as far
Yeah.
as I know.
No, you're correct. Yeah.
So yeah, in that regard, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that like American isn't even in that DNA sense. We have everyone from everywhere, and even in the beginning, even if when you say mostly white or whatever, we're still just different
Yeah,
kinds
you were
too.
still coming from different places across Europe. You had the
Right.
fucking
So I
Dutch, you
mean,
had the fucking Brits.
American
Yeah.
nationalism
Yeah.
isn't necessarily. We're not necessarily calling to be for an independent American anymore. We got that already. But it's more like I don't know how to put it. I guess the easiest way is that we want to fuck everybody else for our own benefit. How about that?
Yeah,
I don't
that's fine.
know what it means. I used to know what it means. I wish I could tell you what it means because I feel like a nationalist, but I don't know
When
what
you
it
say
means to
you
people
used to
anymore.
know what it meant, what did it mean then?
Because people used to just want what was best for their fellow Americans, and that
Yeah.
was it. And they didn't say anything about being mean to the different colored ones. Everybody was American. I mean, my father is a Mexican, or was before he was alive.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Everyone came in from everywhere. When they were when we had our non-interventionist policy, it was because we said we have our own problems here. Now, it didn't mean fuck all y'all. Although it kind of ended up that way at the end.
Yeah.
It just meant we were going to kind of focus on Americans. But now it has a whole racial tinge to it. So I don't know what it means anymore. When I say I'm a nationalist, people call me a white supremacist. It's like the same thing now. But
Yeah.
that was never what it was.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Not
now.
here anyway.
And that's interesting because, yeah, I think there probably was a time where, sorry, I can imagine an America where to say that you were a nationalist was
It was not a bad thing.
had nothing to do with skin color. It had everything to do with
Right.
you backing America and wanting the best for your countrymen, effectively.
Right.
Whether they be
Exactly.
black, white, whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I can completely I say I can completely understand where you're coming from. Obviously, I can't. I'm not American.
now-
I've not lived your life, but I understand.
But
where
now
you're coming
Trump
from.
says it.
Yeah.
And when Trump says it, it's bad. That's how it works. I don't know.
Yeah.
He even said it in this speech. He said there's people although necessarily he didn't start the bad to it. He just fanned the flame. He saw something and he said, I'm going to poke this a little bit. Make it
Yeah,
hotter.
or at the very least, he didn't do his best to put it out. He didn't
Not at all.
reassure-
No,
he
said,
didn't
I'm going
reassure.
to call myself a nationalist. Fuck all y'all. That was to
Yeah.
trigger the libs.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. Yeah, that
He does
definitely
that a
was.
lot. He's
Yeah.
a master at it.
Yeah, and that's to keep him in the headlines. That's to keep him as part. That's to keep him in the Overton window. That's to keep him on people's minds so that people talk about
I
him.
just don't know if it's calculated on his part or dumb luck.
I would argue
Is
it's
he that smart?
no.
Maybe a
He's
little both.
he
Maybe a little
no.
both.
He's not that smart, but he is that narcissistic. If that makes sense.
So he's still lucking into it.
I mean, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah.
He can't help. He's compelled to reply. He's compelled to make these headlines about himself because of his own narcissism. It still lucks into driving the narrative away from what should be talked about, even in regards to his own policy.
Oh, I see. What
Because
you're
more people
yeah,
focus
no,
on what he
okay,
tweets.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I would say yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably due. Because I can't imagine it's a calculated thing where he thinks, all right, I'll tweet this, and then they'll all forget about that other thing. I just think he just lucks
No,
into
he
it.
straight up doesn't give a shit. He's not thinking about the other thing, the previous thing, right?
No, he's just
like,
going for what's right in front of him.
He's like, oh, they just said that I did this. I'm like, well, I'm going to deal with that. And as soon as, like, he's still watching Fox News live while he's tweeting this
While
out,
he's
right?
tweeting, right,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And then the
yes.
next thing he hears is like, oh, fuck, that's, like, I'm going to do some damage control on this. He's already forgotten the last tweet he fucking sent.
But nobody else has.
No, nobody else has, but, like, how many tweets is he sending out a day? Like, 20? Like,
oh, God, more. You gotta not follow his Twitter. I don't.
Right. Like, my point here is that, like, he says so much fucking shit that, like, are you seriously looking at his Twitter feed thinking, like, oh, there's a coherent narrative here? There fucking isn't.
If you picked out bits and pieces, maybe.
Yeah, sure. I can make
I can
make a story out of stuff that he has said, but not the whole thing, right?
I'm just saying, I could snap a few screenshots, right? Yeah. And I would show it to you, be like, all right, here, he's making some sense. But if you look at the other 30 things he tweeted that day.
Yeah, like, he's talking some fucking bullshit here. This is wrong. And you couldn't call him on it, right? You can't confront him on any of this. You ask him a question regarding a tweet. He doesn't remember that fucking tweet. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what he was talking about.
And he says that in how he replies to you, too.
Absolutely.
You'll quote him back directly. And he'll say, I don't remember saying that. I might have said something like that. Probably wasn't that. And he'll ramble on because he doesn't really have a deep memory of that thing he wrote. It was a very fleeting moment for him.
Yeah. And it's like,
he shoots from the cuff in that way. Yeah.
Completely, right? And I would argue there is a complete lack. Either it's a complete lack of self-awareness, or it is a complete lack of the concept of shame.
Well, in his mind, right?
Yeah.
You ever seen those studies where, like, they say the social media gadgets and all that, they kind of trigger our brains because with an amphetamine you get the likes and you get all the retweets or whatever it is, and you like that, and so you want more of that, and so it pushes your engagement.
Yes.
And he gets a lot of that. He gets a lot of retweets. A lot of people reply to him and say that they agree with him, and he will refer to that. When he does conveniently remember a tweet, if it's not too bad and he thinks it's all right, he'll say, and a lot of people agreed with what I said, and a lot of people talking about it, and they say what I'm saying. He loves that instant. So it's not like he doesn't see the feedback.
Oh, man, you're completely right. I mean, I didn't know this about him, but if this is true, you're completely right. I love the idea that he's a social media junkie.
He is.
Like... Oh my God, this makes so much sense.
That's why he's up at 2 or 3 in the morning and tweeting.
Yeah, he's getting his fix, right?
He's the president of the fucking United States. He should be doing better. If he's up at 3 in the morning, it should be for more important reasons than that. You would think, but no.
Yeah. Oh God.
But no, he's incredibly addicted to that instant gratification of knowing if people agree with him or not. And when they don't, he just dismisses them like any other conservative might. Oh, he's a libtard. He's a this. He's a whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously doesn't like me.
And if there's any
Trump just chalks it up to they don't like me. This person doesn't like me.
Yeah, and he'll regurgitate the talking points of like Fox News when they like counter like particular claims made against Trump. He'll just echo what they say.
And because sometimes they'll come up with something, right? Like I'll be hearing a story and it'll break. And I used to watch a little Fox News in the afternoons, a couple shows I liked. And a story would break in the morning and they'd be covering it. In the morning, they're just covering it. No one said nothing. This is what happened. By the time the afternoon guys roll around, a couple of them have got an idea where to roll with this.
Yeah.
And then maybe not every, because the thing is, you only hear the one that wins. A couple of them have a few different ways to roll with it.
Yes.
The best one gets pushed as the major narrative.
Yeah, no, I can believe that. And I'm sure it's
because I remember a couple of times I've been caught up in that where I've saw a story and I've saw this is my opinion on it before anyone else has weighed in, and then like 3 hours later I'll be watching, I'll be like, oh fuck man, Greg Gutfeld had my idea, and then I can't say it now because everyone's gonna say I got it from Fox.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've definitely been there. Not with Fox,
so it's
like I've had moments like that where I've just like, oh, this will be what happened, and then it'll turn out like someone else will start claiming that. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It's gonna look like I'm just echoing
a lot, but
no,
exactly.
me neither. But like,
But that's how that works out. That's how that narrative gets driven. They all kind of throw shit against the wall, and the best one wins. I've seen that on a day-to-day basis when
Yeah,
I've
no,
watched Fox in the
completely.
last year or two.
I don't doubt that.
Um, yeah. But that's media, but every network does that. That's not limited to Fox News. That the same rag will get thrown around on MSNBC in the same way. But I just can't stomach those shows anymore. Lose my head in.
Why is that?
Because they all inject race into things where race need not be injected.
Really?
The left or the Democratic-leaning cable networks.
Yeah.
There was a big thing not too long ago where Trump was talking about Baltimore, and Baltimore has a very well-documented rat infestation.
Mm.
And he brought this up not because he gives a shit about Baltimore, but because one of the representatives from a district in Baltimore had challenged him or said something about him, right?
Yeah.
And so Trump's just going to look at you and say, okay, well, you've attacked me, I'm going to attack you back. Maybe if you spent more time cleaning up your rat-infested blah, 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 that no one... And you watch CNN, it was a racial attack. They spun it into a racial attack.
Really?
Yeah. I have... the guy cried. Black man on CNN started crying.
Holy
Because Trump,
shit.
again, with his racial attack... I can't stomach watching that stuff, and I had to tune the liberal stations off. At least Fox, even if they're going to tell you, even if they're going to spin stuff, at least we'll try to do it logically.
Hang on. Sorry, what's the connection between rats and black people?
Between what now? I missed that.
You said a black guy crying on MSBC.
Because they got that's how deep they went. They couldn't just have Jake Tapper or Chris Cuomo or any of those people say it was racist. They put the black guy on to cry for the television.
No, what I mean is,
This-
is there a slur connotation to the term rat for black people in the U.S.? Because I thought it.
No, what they did was they tried to link it to the infested thing. So they clipped out different times where he used the words infested, either like crime infested, this infested.
Oh, okay.
And they said, he always says that when he's addressing people of color was the spin they were using.
Holy
and he only
shit.
dared use the word infested when speaking to a non-white representative who opposes him.
Oh, okay, right. So, because the only kind of like racial connotation I know associated with rats, I think, is to do with Jews, isn't it? Like Nazi Germany.
I think so. Yeah,
Nazi
right.
propaganda.
But no, that wasn't. They weren't playing on the rat. They were playing on the infestation.
Yeah, no, I get you.
Kind of like the Katie Hopkins infestation thing with migration on that.
The cockroaches. Line.
Right.
Yeah.
So they were playing on the infestation part of what he said, trying to use that as a. So they just made something that he said, which you could pick it apart if you want, but they made it racist where it need not be racism, and I just don't. I can't.
Yeah, I mean that
does my head in to listen to it all the time.
That's kind of a tenuous leap. I mean, this is precisely.
Right. Well, I'm just saying.
This is precisely
and the
why
guy cried.
Yeah,
the guy cried over that tenuous link.
This is precisely why the race card argument exists, right?
Yeah. Exactly, and so I can't watch those kind of. I can't watch those networks. They just, like I said, my head.
That's fucking.
I used to sit down. I used to sit down and watch CNN in the mornings, and I tried to watch the MSNBC evening shows, and it just got worse and worse, and I couldn't do it anymore.
What about now?
Like,
where do you get your news from now? I mean, presumably.
I usually just go online and look shit up. I'll read from those sources. I just can't watch those sources.
I get you. Yeah.
I have a picture on my feed somewhere way down deep of the face that this one anchor made when one of the guys said, "Can we stop with the all the bull crap and get down to some actual issues and not talk about these tweets and talk about some policy?" And just the look on her face, like, no, we're not gonna fucking do that. No one cares about that shit. We're gonna do what I want, And hell no, they didn't do that. We kept talking about, what did you think he meant by this?
Sorry, do you know what that is, John? That's the look of, and go against late-stage capitalism? I think not.
Sure. It was something, but it definitely wasn't, we're going to jump off, do you condemn these words or not? We're going to stick right onto that, and we're not going to say a thing about policy. That's how our media is run over here. That's why you can't watch, really, the news and get news anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Search it out.
But even then, like, how reliable do you find that personally?
You have to you have to source a lot of different places. You have to cross-reference.
Yeah.
You can't just go to one article and say, well, this is what happened. You have to open several different articles on the same story, and then in different articles you'll get a different piece, like, oh, this one left this out, or this one adds a little more, or,
Yeah.
or
This one is just repeating
says
the other
this,
one. Yeah.
or this one says this part in a little different way that kind of clears it up, whereas the other one said it in a more demeaning way if you're reading like a Daily Mail article.
Oh,
Like
I get you. Yeah. Okay.
You have to
Yeah.
kind of do it from different sources to kind of get around. The truth is always in there somewhere. You just got to find it from different places.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
like
I
to
mean,
hide it now.
it is similar in the UK, to be clear, but
Yeah.
I mean, it does sound like on another level there, though. Like.
You can't. You can't. Yeah, it is because our media. It's not. I watch BBC. At least BBC is not half bad. I mean, it's a bias in its ways, but they still have guys on there talking about real stuff.
Yeah.
You can't watch our news without over the top sensationalism. You can't.
Yeah. No, I get you.
So yeah.
Like, how is that like? Would you say that's like? So, would you say your process is pretty common for like your friendship circle? As in, like, does your friend circle, your peer group, like, adopt a similar approach to the media, or?
Well, the people I, yeah, I mean, most of the people I talk to regularly, either that or they ask me directly.
They
If that
ask you
makes
to.
sense. Like, so either people who I know, either in real life or online, I
Yeah.
hardly make the distinction anymore.
No, I get
Will
you.
do their own will do their own research similar to what I do, and they will have multiple stories that they can show me if we're talking about something,
Mm.
or they'll come to me and say, "Have you heard about this? Explain it to me."
I'm with you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because they know that I kind of go out of my way to research things to death. I can't help myself.
Yeah. So
And
you'll get. Yeah. So you are a bit of an outlier, to use a term earlier. The reason I
So
ask, is I'm trying to get
they
an
ask me.
understanding. Yeah, I'm trying to get an understanding for, like, I was about to say the
I
average
ruin
American,
things for
but I don't mean
myself.
the average American. I
The
don't
average
mean- I
American, no. Oh God, no. The average American is dumb as a post. I hate to say that, but it's true. People don't know what's going on because people don't know what's going on. They're
don't
not
care,
being
yeah.
told, and they're not trying to find
Actually,
out.
it's not
They're
that they
just
don't
trying to
care. You only care about shit you know about. Like, if you don't
They're
know about
just
it, how
trying
the
to
fuck
get
are you
through day
supposed
to
care?
day.
Yeah, no,
Well,
completely.
you're right. They're caring about everything they're being told,
Yeah,
but they're being told dumb things.
yeah. No, completely.
I mean, everyone cares about everything they're being told
also,
to care
just to
about.
be clear,
but
just to be
nothing
clear,
good.
just to be clear, it is no different in the UK with regards to that. The things people care about tend to be things on the news, whereas, like, the more pressing issue kind of tends to be completely ignored.
Well, over here, what Trump tweets is a big part of the news cycle. I hate saying that, but it's really true. And I'm talking about cable news. Like I said, most people don't watch regular news anymore,
Yeah.
like your local news.
Yeah,
The cable news is what dominates, and that's 100% driven by profit and people eyeball. So they've got to put out, oh my God, can you believe what the president said? We're going to have 5 people on to talk about it. And it was no different. It's different on Fox now because there's a Republican in office. When Obama was in office, it was the exact same shit on that network. Oh my God, this is what he did and or said today, and we're going to run him down for the rest of these 20 hours.
yeah. I was going to ask, like, do you feel it was a different environment under Obama? But from the sounds of it, like, the news cycle.
It was in the reverse. It was in
Yeah.
it was in the reverse. It was all that
Yeah.
was. Is that there was one network doing it as opposed to 2 or 3.
Yes,
That's all.
I get you. Yeah.
It's just a little more powerful now because they've got CNN is doing it, and MSNBC is doing it, and ABC is doing it, and CBS is doing it. When it was just Fox, you'd kind of ignore them, and the other networks, they didn't always shield the Democrat at that point because you have to be honest. Like Fox is honest about Trump, just not all of them. You just got to watch the right people. You can't because you can't defend your guy 100%. It just looks wrong. You can attack the other guy 100%. But you can't defend your guy 100%. And so they were all a little more honest in those days when Obama was in office. When he didn't do anything, they said they called him out. When he did something they didn't like, they called him out. When he did something they liked, they said good. Fox hated it all, no matter what. In fact, there's skits that exist of the same thing I could say now, where the Republicans were in a room. There's a Key and Peele skit where the guy plays Obama and he just says, this is my new platform. This is what we're going to form my next term. And it's every GOP talking point under the sun. He's going in their direction. But because it's him,
They
Yeah.
have to they have to be against him. They can't
Yeah.
go back to their constituents and say we're going to side with Obama. And it's the
Yeah.
exact same thing today.
Yeah. No, I'm
And
with you.
what bothers me about it is that I bitched about that for 8 years, and now everyone who bitched with me wants to act that exact way.
Oh, against Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, guys, didn't we just have a problem with the obstructionist bullshit for 8 years, and now we want to be obstructionists? And they look me dead in the screen and say, it's our turn now to do that shit to them. They did it to us. No, you don't repeat bad behavior.
Yeah, this is kind of like is it the redistricting or rezoning laws for
No, the
voting?
gerrymandering thing is a different discussion. I'm just
Yeah.
talking about on policy. The Republicans wouldn't approve of anything Obama was doing. That was the first shutdown that Ted Cruz had over even the Obamacare thing, which was the Affordable Care Act. And the
Yes.
government shut down.
Yeah.
The government shut down because the bill passes. Now that's law. Okay, I don't care if you like it or don't. If he got enough votes, he gets the thing in, and he
Yeah.
did. What you don't do then is on the next government spending deal, slip in a little paper that funds the whole operation. That's dirty pool.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So is
So
that what?
Obamacare
So
could pass, but it got no federal money. That was
yeah.
what they tried to slip into the budget bill.
Yeah.
Dirty pool.
But you
That's
consider
why there
that
was a
yeah,
government shutdown.
you're arguing that's a dirty pool. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that was a GOP trick. It was a complete obstructionist policy. And I and every other Democrat at the time were pissed to no end that all they tried to do was stop him from doing whatever he wanted to do. They just played nothing but obstructionist politics the entire term he was in there. And everything he got through had to fight tooth and nail. And then as soon as a Republican got in office, we said, we want to do that now. And I don't like that idea. Why do I have to be exactly what I opposed?
Yeah. Well, this goes
Why
back
can't
to
I
yeah.
want to just work on good policy. I don't care which side it's coming from.
No, yeah, I'm with you.
I
This
want
goes back
I
to
want
that.
sensible.
Yeah, this goes
Yeah.
back to that issue with the way you framed it was tribalism,
Yeah.
and this is exactly what this sounds like.
Yeah.
Which is
And
that
I
it's
hate it.
it's fine when we do it.
Right, but let them do it and it's an outrage, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't like that, and I run into that all the time, and I run into that in so many situations.
Yeah.
And it's funny when you wake up from that and you see it happening everywhere, you become the outcasted one. How dare you not pick a side and stick with it tooth and nail?
I mean, the other element to it is like we are suffering with this issue in the UK as well now because we operate on what's known as a first past the post system, which is that like you have to get X number of seats in Parliament and then you're the majority ruling party, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
No, I've been slowly learning how your shit works.
yeah, I mean, like there are a lot of similarities to your what do you call it what do you call the seats that you guys win per section? The
House seats, Senate seats, congressmen's,
college of
there's a lot of different.
the,
Huh?
the college of
The Electoral College?
the electoral college. That is what it's called.
Well, that's just we only do one election that way, and yeah, that
Yes.
does more mimic your parliamentary system where we're in that way. But for the most part, we vote for individuals, not for a party. And so
Yeah.
when you guys vote for people, you vote for the party, and then they assign the seats based on which party got the most votes and how many seats are associated with that.
Well,
Whereas I go down and I can vote for any individual guy I want.
yeah, no, I'm with you, and yeah, I think that's probably an accurate breakdown. The other thing I would add is as well is that we have. I mean, the state. I know the states has this as well, but we have your council positions, and then you have your parliament positions, which again are two different things. So
Right.
yeah, so like your council, which is basically deciding what locally, your
Right. No, we have all of that too, right? State and local, because we have like the similar positions that are federal that you elect. Even though you elect a local person to go represent you, they have kind of the very same positions yet very local. Like each state has its own Supreme Court and so on and so forth.
yeah, because I mean, that's down to yours is slightly different because I believe you're technically a republic, aren't you?
Right.
Yeah,
Constitutional republic.
constitutional republic. That's what it is. Whereas we're a constitutional monarchy. Um,
Right.
so like the structures, like the structure of that is quite different. If I remember rightly, our council system is a relatively recent addition to basically reflect that, so that you have people who focus on specific local issues and local revenues that are generated and how those are spent locally on generally infrastructure maintenance and schools, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the I did have a point I was going to bring up, which was to do with the first past the post system in the UK. There does kind of seem to be a tangible change in UK politics to do with that. Well, now it's actually kind of impossible to. The system works great if you have just two political parties. Unfortunately,
Which we have more, but they get shot down.
yeah. So like you're like currently you seem to still be pretty bipartisan, and like in the sense that there's two
Right.
parties
Well,
really.
like I said, there's more, but they get shit on if they even try.
Yeah, and that used to be the case in the UK, but recently with things like the Conservative Party is only in power because of the DUP, which is like I think it was 8 or 9 seats from fucking from Northern Ireland, they got cut £1 billion paycheck to go back to spend in Northern Ireland, and that's the only reason the Tory Party is in power and was able to form a government. Um, yeah, and then you've got things like the SNP, Scottish Nationalist Party, which took a huge amount of seats away from Labour because Labour had failed to kind of represent Scotland properly in Parliament, Scotland's interests, so that created like that fertile ground for a specifically focused Scottish party to form. So there is a real strong need for a lot of electoral reform in the UK to get rid of basically the first past the post system and have. I would argue, I think the most appropriate descriptor is like a Senate, or an assembly, where it's not a question of first past the post. It's everyone votes on specific issues that are affecting the nation, the UK, as opposed to the term we use in the UK is London-centric thinking, which is that basically pretty much a lot of economic policy and a lot of legislation that gets pushed through is primarily focused purely on London and things that benefit London, whereas Northern Ireland, is put on the back burner, or Scotland is put on the back burner, and gets a disproportionately does not get enough funding proportional to the population that's living there, if that makes sense. Because everyone's focused on
No, I
London.
saw a video about that.
Yeah.
Another thing John Oliver covered.
Yeah. So either those nations that make up the United Kingdom secede, which that idea is getting a lot of traction at the moment in the UK.
Yeah, I've been seeing that.
And I completely understand why, because we've completely fucked it up. By we, I mean the establishment, the powers that be in the in Parliament. You can only neglect people so long before they're like,
Isn't it a bit of a paradox though? Because what I see when that comes up is that and is that leavers don't want them to leave.
I mean, there's an element of that, but I would also argue there's an awful lot of leavers who are just like, oh, that's the price we pay for sovereignty.
Sure,
Yeah.
but still, I would say 100% of Remainers both want to remain and want them to remain, right? And it wouldn't be 100% of leavers who have that, price to pay view.
Oh, that's an interesting point. I see what you're saying. I mean, I to be blunt,
You want your own sovereignty, but you want to deny someone else theirs.
no.
Seems like a
I
bit
mean
of a
to be
paradox.
blunt, speaking as a Remainer, as one Remainer. I mean, I was for remaining in the European Union, but also I am completely pro Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland gaining its independence.
But wouldn't that? Well, wait a second. If they would gain their independence, they would just join the EU anyway, wouldn't
Potentially, but it would be their choice.
they? Well, sure, but it's the same as it is now.
No.
No?
Well, no. So Scotland, for example, voted overwhelmingly to remain, as did Northern Ireland, if I remember rightly. But
You're probably right.
unfortunately, because they're under the the United Kingdom umbrella, the people have decided against what they wanted, which was to leave. But you know, me being okay with Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland seceding has got nothing to do with the EU or Brexit or any of that shit. It's got everything to do with I'm a great
Well, no,
believer. Hmm?
but that, what would be how? I guess things would improve. I'm just thinking, like, if they're in the EU now, and if you want to remain in the EU, what would be the difference in them leaving and then joining the EU versus where they're at right now? I guess they'd get more attention.
I don't understand the question. Sorry, like,
Well, because you said London-centric politics. Well, I mean, so if you remained, right,
yeah,
you would still support Scottish independence from the UK,
yes,
right? You
yeah,
said that.
absolutely,
And if they gain their independence
yep,
and then by choice join the EU,
yeah, or leave,
how different
yeah,
would it be from right now?
different from right now.
For
That's the bit I'm
them, for
struggling.
how
Oh,
much better, what would improve for the Scottish people in that scenario versus the current one?
I can't like so. This is assuming that the UK remains.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have remained member states of the EU. Scotland gets independence, also remains a member of the
Or
EU.
joins the EU, however you want to work that out. Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I don't like without knowing the specific structure of like the
Whatever
agreement.
deal they'd get.
I would like to think that for me this would be the ideal outcome for Scotland. Scotland would get the deal that would get basically get the same deal that the UK negotiated.
Because you got the best deal.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
We
So they would
currently
want to keep the best deal.
currently we've got the best deal, and I'd like to think Scotland, as a member state of that deal, would get that same deal.
Right, and they'd want to get the best deal.
Yeah, and I'd like, they would be reclassified as, founding members, but in arrears, if that makes sense.
But they could just is it that they could just focus more on their needs? Is that what would be the improvement?
So the improvement for the Scottish people would be that the revenue that's generated from like VAT and North Sea gas, but that's in decline now. But anyway, they would be in charge of their own. They would be completely in charge of their own tax revenue. Like currently, it's disproportionately given to London to decide what to do with. So Scotland could, use its tax revenue on projects that it specifically wanted to do to improve the Scottish region. There is some argument. There are some arguments saying that Scotland would actually become worse off because it relies an awful lot on England and Wales for its for money spent within it. I'm not going to pretend to you that I'm particularly well versed in that. It used to be the contrary. It used to be that Scotland it used to be commonly accepted truth that Scotland contributed more to the UK economy than the UK Parliament contributed to Scotland, if that makes sense.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but apparently in like the last couple of years that's changed. I don't know which one is true. If you're asking me why am I okay with it, why would I be more than happy to let Scotland secede? Is that what you're asking me?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, so for me, I'm a great believer in being able to have something to compare what your country is doing with another country.
Okay.
So, if Scotland, the Scottish border, we as countries both speak English. So I go to I have friends who live in Scotland. So, for example, I know that Scotland, you have what is known as the right to roam, which basically means you can go anywhere in Scotland, assuming it's not like MOD, Ministry of Defence land. You can go on private property and even camp on private property, and no one's allowed to say shit, as long as you're not a dick about it, right? Yeah. Whereas you don't get that in England. In England, we don't.
Either.
Yeah, in England, we don't have the right to roam. And I would really like England to have the right to roam. And the only reason I know about the right to roam is because Scotland exists and they have different laws to me, and I have friends that live there. So if Scotland secedes the UK, it'll start making its own laws. It'll start doing its own thing. It already is doing its own thing in May. And in that regard, it means that there are two sets of ideas and experiments going on with regards to what works. Do you see what I mean?
Right. No, I'm following you.
Yeah. So I would rather have that and, have friends in Scotland who can tell me about what's going great in Scotland, what laws they've passed, what legislation really seems to be working, what isn't working, because then that can inform my decision as to what I want to happen in England. And I just think that,
Interesting.
yeah, and I think splitting things up allows for a bigger melting pot and exploration of different ideas to work out what works.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
I just didn't like it. I was looking at it from a perspective of, to being against leaving a body like the EU, but for them breaking up the UK union. It just doesn't. It seemed like something that people were opposed to and okay with it for different reasons, and I just wanted to figure out why.
I mean, regarding why I'm pro the European Union is because it.
We covered that last time.
Yeah.
A lot of reasons.
Yeah, I mean, to summarise, it's just because geopolitically we function really well as a EU superpower.
Mm.
That's it. In a nutshell.
And you got a really good deal.
Yeah, and the UK specifically got a fucking amazing deal.
I don't ever hear that get mentioned.
What's that?
The deal. Like everyone says about a deal, and I wish someone would have brought up, well, how are you going to get a better deal than the best deal?
Well, people did.
And if you were going to renegotiate to get a better deal, wouldn't you be in a better position to do it from where you're at?
Yeah, David. Okay, so David Cameron. I don't know if you're aware of this. David Cameron did go and try and do that.
He did, and he failed. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he didn't fail. He did actually renegotiate some terms, but a lot of people said that wasn't good enough.
Still a failure. He had to give the referendum.
Well,
he didn't have to, but he did.
No, I get what you're saying, and yeah, okay.
He did. It messed everything up.
Yeah, yeah. I do absolutely blame David Cameron for the situation today.
But maybe that's where we can end it, because I got some stuff I got to do. It's it's not too late here. This is longer than the last one.
It is, yeah. I've got my recording says 3 hours and 11 minutes.
Oh yeah, no one's gonna listen to it. All right, everyone's gonna look and go, oh hell no, and back off. And as usual, we covered everything you could possibly think of, just rambling on and on.
We did, yeah. I think we covered some real issues. We found some real solutions
that no one will work with.
No, I completely agree. And this is my disenchantment with with trying to engage in trying to actually bring about any kind of tangible political change. It's just not.
Because it really doesn't do any good.
Yeah.
That's the sad part. Even when you can reach a common ground, what difference does it make? Who's going to listen?
I completely agree with you.
That's a kind of sad way to end it. We'll think of something better for next time. Unless you get someone else who wants to do it. No messages from last time, I take it.
No one contacted me being like, oh, you should come
no one got to the end.
I don't know. Like, I'm quite happy with this. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fine with me.
Yeah. Like if people like, I think once like there's a part of me that thinks if people see that this is a semi-regular thing happening. I mean, Jesus, I've already beaten James because I've done 2 podcasts.
Yeah, no, you've already got a number up by 1.
If people see that this is a semi-regular thing and that it is happening, like people may
Maybe
decide
they'll want to participate. Yeah.
Yeah, and like besides which, like, I'm enjoying hearing the perspective of someone in the US, and I would hope vice versa for you.
No, yeah, you give me a lot of information.
Yeah, likewise, sir. Yeah, so I guess we'll leave it at that. Somber note, some unhappy note to end it on. So let's think of it. Let's come up with something positive.
Man, you asked me for positivity off the top of my head. That's the wrong guy.
Well, I wasn't specifically asking you. I was kind of thinking out loud. But if you've got nothing, it's all on my shoulders. Oh, I've got something, and I really hope that this. I hope that when I say this and share this, it becomes a really useful term that you use, and kind of completely changes your outlook on it. Which is the term "risty." Aristi is Australian.
Risty?
Yeah, Aristi is Australian for hand job.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, Risty, and I think that's really nice.
Risty.
Do you want a Risty?
No, that makes sense.
Do you want a hand job? Like, it's better than hand job, right? Do you want a Risty?
Yeah, it's actually a lot less crude.
Exactly, right? Risty sounds friendly. Risty's your buddy. Like, hey, Risty,
Yeah.
right? Whereas hand job, like, cut the
You could actually say that. You could actually say that in polite company if someone says no. Okay.
Damn straight you can. Anyway, on that lighter note, thank you very much for your time, John.
You're welcome.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you kindly. It's been a pleasure as always. Yeah, this has been a pleasant conversation by the fire. I've completely forgotten the name of the podcast.
Fireside chat or something of that nature.
Yeah, this has been a fireside conversation with no one of consequence and John. So thank you for listening if you made it here.
All right, signing off.
Signing off.